Chapter 975. At this moment, Yang Dingtian had entered the most difficult and painful stage of work. Day after day, there was no end in sight. It was not a big deal if it was just boring, but the most important thing was failure. That's right, failure. A series of failures, one after another. Every section of the conversion code would fail. It was not a possibility of failure, but a certainty of failure. If one was lucky, they would fail 8 to 10 times. If one was unlucky, they would fail hundreds of times. Moreover, once they failed, the most painful thing was to find the source of the failure. It was very likely that it was just a small section of code, dozens or hundreds of codes. It was an extremely painful job. Yang Dingtian had never encountered such a situation before. He really did not know how many times he had wanted to give up. He had gritted his teeth and worked hard to complete it. As for the demon fox high priest, she had a slight advantage over Yang Dingtian in the beginning. However, after countless days and nights of work, her advantage was completely gone. Then she fell into a state that was even more painful than Yang Dingtian. Of course, compared to Yang Dingtian, she was much better. Because she loved this line of work very much, she did not feel that this job was very boring. However, after a series of failures, she would still cry bitterly. Therefore, from the beginning until now, she had cried countless times. Moreover, she was completely wailing and rolling on the ground. After crying, she went to sleep. After sleeping, she started to work again, looking for errors in the code. Yang Dingtian could not cry, so he forced his beard to grow long and his hair to turn white. Until now, Yang Dingtian and the demon fox high priest had not completed more than 1/3 of the work. This was really like a terrifying bitter cultivation. They had almost exhausted their experience and willpower, and the road ahead was still far away. On the city wall of Beijing, thousands of martial arts experts had also entered a truly bitter battle. Below the city walls, there were more than 2 million world devastation barbarian soldiers, who were like a surging tide, surging forward in an endless stream. The most terrifying thing was still those war beasts. Not only could the cannons not hurt them, but even the grandmasters could not hurt them. Most importantly, their power was extremely shocking. The collision unicorn charged from a few thousand meters away. At its peak, it could reach up to 100 meters per second. After Dongfang Minmi discovered the danger, he immediately sent a dozen or so infinite grandmasters to attack. However, it was too late. Boom! With a loud sound, the entire city wall trembled. This huge city wall, which was dozens of meters high and dozens of meters deep, was built with thousands of kilograms of stone. This collision unicorn was tens of meters long, tens of meters tall, and weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. The horns on his head were harder than steel. This violent collision actually created a hole that was more than 10 meters wide in the city wall. Dozens of soldiers within the city walls were instantly crushed, and the cannons on top of them were also twisted. And this war behemoth, attacked by dozens of limitless great grandmasters, died immediately. His entire body was embedded in the hole. Dongfang Minmi said to the Mermaid Queen, "Your Majesty, I'll have to trouble you to lead the half-step saints to destroy these war behemoths." The Mermaid Queen Violet said. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The giant crystal crossbows on the city wall shot crazily at these war behemoths. In a short time, the war behemoths' bodies were filled with giant arrows, but they still charged ferociously. The Mermaid Queen Violets led 10 half-step saints. Each powerhouse claimed a war behemoth and killed it crazily. Swish, 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 swish. The energy of these war behemoths was too terrifying. Even a saint-level powerhouse would need at least a dozen attacks to kill one of them. And a half-step saint powerhouse could see that hundreds of swords condensed with profound chi, could kill a war behemoth. Even so, there was still a devil giant that rushed under the city wall. Its incomparably huge body was more than 100 meters tall, 20 to 30 meters wide, and weighed more than 1,000,000 pounds. It also had 3 heads and 6 arms, and was invulnerable. Its huge arm held a mallet that weighed more than 100,000 pounds and smashed it against the city wall. Boom! Suddenly, huge rocks splashed. The entire city wall was smashed open with a gap that was dozens of meters wide. More than a dozen martial venerable experts retreated like lightning, but there were still 3 people who were smashed into meat paste. Violets flew to the top of the devil giant's head and condensed all of her profound chi into the sword in her hand. Swish, profound chi gushed out crazily. Directly, this devil giant was beheaded from head to toe. It was split into 2 halves. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly, there was a loud whistling sound in the sky. Dozens of miles away from the city wall, more than 100 war behemoths, like catapults, suddenly threw huge lumps weighing hundreds of kilograms towards the city wall. Each of these trebuchet war behemoths was over 100 meters long. Their whole bodies were like scorpions. Countless sharp claws drilled into the ground dozens of meters, fixing their incomparably huge bodies on the ground. Then their tails, which were hundreds of meters long, had an incomparably amazing elastic force, and suddenly threw thousands of pounds of objects dozens of miles away. Whoosh 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 whoosh, these huge black spots were directly thrown into the city. Even if the martial arts masters on the city wall saw these black spots, they ignored them, because the battle on the city wall was even more intense. These world destruction barbarian army must be eliminated from a distance. Once they were allowed to get close, even an ordinary world destruction barbarian general would pose a threat to the martial arts masters. These hundreds of black spots slammed into the houses in the city. In an instant, countless houses collapsed and shattered. What the war behemoths threw over was a kind of metal ball, a metal ball that would constantly roll. The huge metal ball, which weighed thousands of pounds, rolled over and shattered everything. But this was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was after the rolling stopped. Bang! These metal balls suddenly exploded. The green slurry inside flew out. Suddenly, all the soldiers who were contaminated with the green slurry quickly rotted and corroded. These soldiers let out earth-shattering screams. Even if there was only 1 drop, it directly penetrated the armor and the body. The corrosive venom splashed out of these hundreds of iron lumps killed thousands of soldiers alive. Tens of thousands of soldiers were injured. Every soldier that was corroded to death was a horrible sight to behold. When Qin Huayu saw this scene, he was shocked and immediately ordered, "Artillery, aim at the trebuchet war behemoths 30 miles away, fire." Suddenly, thousands of artillery stopped firing at the world destruction barbarian army, raised their muzzles, and aimed at the war behemoths dozens of miles away. Fire fiercely. Boom 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 boom. Countless artillery shells bombarded out crazily. Like a rainstorm, they sprinkled on the position of the war behemoths. There was no need for point-to-point accuracy at all, they directly carpet-bombed. Boom 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 boom. Crazy artillery bombardment. In this way, the martial arts masters on the city wall had to deal with the world destruction barbarian army with all their strength, and the pressure suddenly became extremely huge. Dongfang Minmi shouted, "Third group, first group, give up resting and join the battle." Suddenly, thousands of martial arts masters gave up resting. They immediately released energy light with all their strength, frantically killing the world destruction barbarian army that surged up the city wall. Boom 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 boom, countless artillery fire bombarded the trebuchet war behemoths. But, whoosh 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 whoosh, the second wave of attacks from the trebuchet war behemoths still came as expected. Hundreds of iron lumps filled with venom suddenly smashed into the city. Boom 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 boom, in an instant, there were countless casualties again. Thousands of soldiers were corroded to the point that even their bones could not be seen. The war behemoths of the Legion of Doom were too terrifying. Even such an amazing carpet bombing could not hurt them at all. Dongfang Minmi said to the mermaid Wan in pain, "Your Majesty, these war behemoths still need you to go." "No problem," the mermaid Queen Violet said. She led the semi-saint masters and had just finished killing the war behemoths under the city wall. This time, she led a total of 100 masters and flew towards the war behemoths outside. In a moment, these 100 masters arrived at the position of the trebuchet war behemoths. Swish, 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 hundreds of masters were crazily slaughtering and cutting. Each of these war behemoths was really like a small mountain, as tall as dozens of floors and as big as a football field. They just stood there motionless and let you cut them. No one knew how long it would take to kill them. Moreover, these war behemoths were completely invulnerable. The shell of each war behemoth was harder than steel, and the thinnest part was nearly a foot thick. This was equivalent to dozens of centimeters of armor. No wonder countless artillery fire had no effect on them. Dozens of centimeters of armor, even the depleted uranium armor-piercing shells on Earth would find it difficult to penetrate. Not to mention, the shells of the chaotic world did not have the armor-piercing function at this time. The mermaid Queen Violets was completely speechless in the face of such war behemoths. She could only use her heart fire to heat the sword light to the extreme and then cut wildly. However, the effect was very ordinary. The heat resistance of the armor of these war behemoths was astonishing. Therefore, if this continued, hundreds of masters would not be able to kill these war behemoths, and their chi would be completely exhausted. And if it was just a simple sword light attack, even if an infinite great master exhausted his chi, he might not be able to kill one, because this shell almost blocked all damage for the war behemoths. Unless it was a lightning attack. It directly passed through the shell and hit the inside. If Yang Dingtian was here, a few mysterious fire lightning might be able to end it. But he was not here. Although the Mermaid Queen's cultivation was much higher, she was completely speechless in the face of such war behemoths. Dongfang Minmi, who was on the city wall in the distance, saw this scene. Qin Huayu suddenly stepped forward and said, "Sect Master Dongfang, those war behemoths are as hard as steel. They might be afraid of cold and heat. Therefore, using unfreezing water to attack may be effective." Dongfang Minmi nodded and said, "Go get it immediately and send it to the battlefield." Qin Huayu said. Then, Qin Huayu led dozens of infinite great master experts to the city wall and carried hundreds of energy jade barrels. Each of them was filled with hundreds of kilograms of unfreezing water, and the temperature was equivalent to more than -200 degrees Celsius on Earth. Dozens of great master experts carried the unfreezing water to the battlefield. The experts led by the Mermaid Queen were still crazily killing these football field-sized war behemoths. Violets had already killed 3, but her subordinates had not been able to kill even 1. The infinite great master experts placed the unfreezing water jade barrels on the thinnest part of the armor on the back of the war behemoths. Then, they smashed the energy jade barrels. In an instant, the unfreezing water surged out. The surrounding air suddenly became incomparably cold. The area of more than 10 meters on the back of the war behemoths was instantly frozen by the low temperature of -200 degrees Celsius. Do it. An order was given. Hundreds of infinite great master experts crazily bombarded the frozen armor. It was indeed effective. After being frozen by the cold, the armor of more than 10 meters became very brittle, and under the attack, it was instantly shattered. Get and kill? The Mermaid Queen ordered. Immediately, hundreds of martial arts experts drilled into the holes on the backs of these war behemoths and entered their bodies. Then, they crazily hacked and bombarded inside. Immediately, these war behemoths roared and rolled on the ground desperately. They crazily tore the earth apart. In just a few minutes, they were all killed in their bodies. Whoosh 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 whoosh, hundreds of infinite great masters flew out of these war behemoths. At this time, the battle on the city wall had reached its most intense level. Even many cannons had been turned off, because countless corpses had been piled up dozens of meters high, blocking the muzzles of the cannons. Countless world destruction barbarian armies stepped on the corpses and rushed up crazily. The Mermaid Queen Violets led hundreds of infinite great masters and rushed back quickly. Behind the Legion of Doom, they crazily killed. Above and below the city wall, thousands of martial arts experts and thousands of energy rays were released crazily. Whoosh 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 whoosh, the entire city wall was completely enveloped by countless rays of light. Countless world destruction barbarian army were directly smashed into pieces by this terrifying energy light. An hour later, everything on the city wall had completely stopped, because there was no longer a single world destruction barbarian army on the city wall. A total of 5 million world destruction barbarian army, hundreds of thousands of world destruction barbarian cavalry, and thousands of war behemoths were all smashed into pieces and killed. The first wave of the Legion of Doom's attack was over. The city had not been breached. They had saved the city. The human countries had won the first battle. At this time, the sun was setting in the west. The first day of battle was about to end. On the city wall, thousands of experts were all sitting on the city wall, unable to even celebrate their victory. Facing the annihilation of more than 5 million Legion of Doom, the Devil Queen smiled disdainfully and said, "Well, that's it for today. Our game is also over. Tomorrow, the Dark Dragon, Dark Evil Dragon, and Destructive Earth Dragon will all attack. Let's start the real killing." As soon as these words came out, Li Ming and Dong Li were shocked and said, "Yes." The Devil Queen looked at the Shura Vulture and said, "Tomorrow is your glorious moment. You will become the ruler of the battlefield." Vulture's delicate body trembled. Chapter 976. Dong Li said, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, now that the enemy's martial artists have almost exhausted their celestial chi, why don't we take the opportunity to attack?" Devil Queen said, "Don't you see that the sun is about to set, and the sky is about to turn dark?" Dong Li said, "But our Legion of Doom can fight at night. In the night battle, our army is even stronger." Queen Devil Queen frowned in disgust and said, "But when it's dark, the scene won't be as good as during the day. Is there a problem?" Hearing this reason, Dong Li couldn't help but be stunned and then said, "But you said before that in order to consume the celestial chi of those martial artists, you made the 5 million Legion of Doom cannon fodder. Now," Devil Queen said, "What? Do you have a problem?" "I don't dare." Dong Li said, "I just feel that it's too wasteful to sacrifice our Legion of Doom like this." Queen Devil Queen smiled disdainfully. This was really the thinking of a poor person. Then she didn't bother to pay attention to Dong Li, nor did she threaten to use first-class evil spirits to suppress his will again. She smiled and said, "Oh, tonight, let's have a good banquet. Tomorrow, let's completely destroy this city." "Yes, Your Majesty Devil Queen." All the evil spirit commanders and evil spirit generals bowed. Inside Beiping City, after an entire day of fierce fighting, the martial arts legions of the human countries wiped out the 5 million Legion of Doom. As for their own casualties, they should be considered to be minimal. The catapults and war behemoths threw hundreds of highly toxic iron bullets, causing tens of thousands of casualties. Also, the war behemoths attacked the city, causing less than 10 casualties to the martial arts legions. So in a sense, this was a great victory. However, no one celebrated the victory, because everyone knew that the victory on the first day was just a probing attack by the Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom that died today were all cannon fodder. The Legion of Doom's trump card army, the Dark Dragon, the Dark Evil Dragon, and the Destructive Earth Dragon, did not move at all. Of course, despite this, Dongfang Minmi still ordered all the troops to share the joy of today's victory. Today's battle at least proved that the Legion of Doom was not completely invincible and invulnerable. Even war behemoths that were hundreds of feet long could be killed. All the barracks in the entire city were filled with the aroma of meat. All the soldiers were to enjoy a sumptuous meal. Originally, thousands of powerful martial arts masters were too close to meditate to prepare for tomorrow's battle. But in the end, Dongfang Nimi and the Mermaid Queen still decided to hold a banquet. Let all the masters enjoy a delicious dinner. As for regulating their breathing and meditating, there was simply no need for one night. In any case, it was enough to ensure that everyone would be filled with profound energy for tomorrow's battle. The Mermaid Queen Violets, served by the fierce Knife Princess, lazily enjoyed her dinner. Then a female mermaid said, "Your Majesty, the humans, Dongfang Minmi and the others, request an audience." "Please," the Mermaid Queen Violet said. Then, Dongfang Minmi led Bolu, Yao Zi, the elder of the Netherworld Sea, Qin Huayu, and the others into the Mermaid Queen's temporary residence. "Everyone, please take a seat," the Mermaid Queen said directly without standing up. She always did not care about such customs. Dongfang Minmi sat down and said, "Your Majesty, what do you think of tomorrow's battle?" The Mermaid Queen said, "First of all, We all know that today's victory was entirely because the Queen Devil Queen was making fun of us. Then tomorrow's battle will depend on the Queen Devil Queen's mood. If she continues to make fun of us, then although tomorrow's battle will be much more difficult, at least the city will not be destroyed, and our soldiers will not all die. But if the Queen Devil Queen's patience runs out, then the entire Beijing city will be completely destroyed tomorrow. Once these words were said, everyone present fell into silence. Without a doubt, this was the most painful. The cat caught the mouse but did not eat it. Instead, it played with it again and again. Seeing the mouse struggling with all its might would make the cat feel incomparably happy. And when the cat lost interest, it would directly bite the mouse to death and eat it. And the most painful thing was that the mouse had to put on a show and struggle with all its might so that the cat would continue to play with it with interest and curiosity. It was all to stall for time until Yang Dingtian arrived. Qin Huayu finally could not help but ask, "Your Majesty, everything we have done, everything we have sacrificed, is to wait for the sect leader's return. But, after the sect leader returns, can we really win this battle of doom?" The Mermaid Queen thought for a moment and nodded. "I can guarantee that if Yang Dingtian returns, we will definitely win this war. But when he will return, I really can't guarantee." The only thing they could do was pray. Because what Yang Dingtian needs to do is 10 times, 100 times more difficult than what we have to do. Once these words were said, everyone fell into silence. Elder Total Annihilation suddenly said, "Your Majesty, there is something I don't understand." The Mermaid Queen said, "Please speak." Elder Total Annihilation said, "Sect leader Yang Dingtian's cultivation is far inferior to your Majesty's. Today, I saw that it was not easy for your Majesty to kill the Legion of Doom's war beasts. And I saw that their black dragon was 100 times, 1,000 times bigger than the war beasts. Then, can sect leader Yang Dingtian's return change the situation?" The Mermaid Queen thought for a moment and said, "You are right. Today's war beasts have already made it so difficult for us. And it is even more difficult for us to kill the black dragon. It is like a strong man who can smash a huge rock into pieces with one punch. But, if this rock is as big as a huge mountain, then, a strong man would need to smash tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times to smash this huge rock into pieces. However, there was another type of energy that, at the very least, would be able to easily shatter the boulder into smithereens. Actually, the energy of the two is the same, and the strong man's energy is even more powerful. But, the attribute of the energy is different." Elder Total Annihilation nodded and said, "I understand." The Mermaid Queen said, "Everyone, don't worry. In fact, not only did I see this scene, sect leader Wu Yu also saw it clearly. A Naga that has just completed its transformation, a Naga that is only at the saint level. It can easily kill tens of thousands of black dragons and hundreds of thousands of black dragons. It is because of the energy attribute of Naga that is especially terrifying." After a moment of silence, the Mermaid Queen said, "And your sect leader Yang Dingnan is going to find the power of the King of Naga. So, when he returns, it will be the time of victory." As soon as this was said, everyone was immediately excited and full of morale. In everyone's hearts, the strategy became clear again. Use space to exchange for time. Use all means to stall for time and wait for Yang Dingtian's return. Dongfang Minmi raised his cup and said, "Then, everyone, fight hard tomorrow and wait for the return of the sect leader." All the powerhouses raised their cups and said loudly, "Fight to the death and wait for sect leader Yang's return." Even though Beijing City was full of vigilance for the entire night. But after a night, nothing happened. On the Legion of Doom's side, they built a banquet hall directly on the back of the Black Dragon. Then, thousands of dark spirits held an incomparably sumptuous banquet inside. In fact, the Queen Devil Queen even brought His Majesty the Demon King's band, as well as endless delicacies and fine wine. In her joy, the Devil Queen's deceased concubine even danced with Crown Prince Li Ming. The next day, dawn arrived as usual. The sun rose into the sky. In Beijing City, all the troops woke up and began to eat breakfast. After eating, they began to wipe their weapons. They began to transport the cannonballs and crystal arrows. In yesterday's battle, they had used up millions of cannonballs and millions of giant arrows. And these were only less than 1/5 of Beijing City's inventory. Behind them, an astonishing convoy was still sending cannonballs, food, meat, arrows, and crystals. Everyone knew that today's battle would be very, very intense. As for how intense it would be, they still did not know. However, the worst outcome would be complete destruction. Therefore, those participating in today's battle were not just a few thousand martial arts experts, 5,000 cannons, and tens of thousands of crystal crossbows. There were also 300,000 archers who would enter the city walls. These 300,000 archers would operate 100,000 large and medium-sized crystal crossbows to participate in the battle. The sun had just revealed its face. A few thousand martial arts legions had all ascended to the city wall and were ready to fight at any time. 5,000 cannons had all been prepared and could be fired at any time. Today, each of the cannons was prepared with more than 400 shells. In fact, more than a few thousand cannons were prepared to be replaced. Last night, Great Cloud Sky City transported a new batch of war weapons. Phoenix Grade No. 5 missiles. They had just started to be manufactured a month ago. At this moment, the first batch had finally been manufactured. The destructive missiles only had one characteristic, and that was that they were very, very, very big. Each missile weighed more than 40 tons. That was 80,000 caddies. This was a devastating weapon of mass destruction. There were more than 50 kilograms of X crystals in each of the Annihilation-level missiles. The warlocks had estimated that the explosion of a destructive missile could kill all the soldiers within a radius of 1,000 meters. In order to transport this batch of destructive missiles, Great Cloud Sky City had used thousands of demonic dragons to travel day and night from the secret base to the front line of Beijing City. Of course, this time, not only were there destructive missiles, but there were also sky-level missiles. The so-called sky-level missiles were all anti-air missiles. They were anti-air missiles. There were about 1,000 of them, each about 2 tons. They were completely experimental weapons. The main purpose was to see if they could rely on missiles to destroy the Dark Dragon. Because monsters like the Dark Dragon were tens of thousands of meters long, there was no need to aim at them. This time, the person who escorted this batch of materials was Song Chunhua. She did not only bring destructive missiles and sky-level missiles. She also brought her demonic fire phoenix. This demonic fire phoenix was only a few years old. However, it had already swallowed all the magma in the northwest continent. That's right, all the magma in the abyss crack had already solidified. It had already swallowed an astronomical amount of fire energy. At this moment, its original body was already close to 100 meters in size. Song Chunhua brought it to the battlefield, hoping that it could severely damage the air force of the Legion of Doom in the air. All the destructive missiles and sky-level missiles had just been transported to the front line. Hundreds of warlocks led tens of thousands of people to add up all the missiles. At this moment, they were ready to enter the battle at any time. On the city wall, Qin Huayu said, "Chunhua, you shouldn't have come. Your mission is to escort strategic materials." Song Chunhua shook her head and said, "I've already transported them here. The committee didn't ask me to go back immediately. Moreover, all the secret factories have already transported all their stocks here. There are no escort missions in the next few days." Qin Huayu looked at the incomparably huge destructive missiles and said, "I really hope that they can work. I really hope that we can rely on the power of our new civilization to destroy these devils." Song Chunhua said, "Whether it works or not, we'll know in a while." "That's right, we'll know soon." Because the Queen Devil Queen had already returned to her golden throne. She touched her forehead as if she was still hungover. Then she lazily ordered, "Attack and destroy the city in front." Dong Li and the others said excitedly. Yesterday, although it was an act, they were still very unhappy that the human countries had won. Today they could finally fight openly. Immediately, the war horn beast hundreds of meters away began to roar again. The shocking bugle horn spread for 1,000 miles. Then, the tide-like Legion of Doom began a new charge. 500,000 world destruction barbarian cavalry, 5 million world destruction barbarian army. More than 5,000 terrifying war behemoths. Today, the regular strength of the Legion of Doom far exceeded yesterday's. There were several times more war behemoths, and twice as many world destruction barbarian cavalry. However, the terrifying thing was far more than that. Following the Queen Devil Queen's order, the Dark Dragon, which was like a huge mountain and a dark cloud, roared and roared as it flew towards Beiping City. A single dark colossal dragon was almost as big as a city. There were also countless dark vile dragons flying over like lightning. The trump cards of the Legion of Doom, the Dark Dragon and the Dark Vile Dragons, all attacked. It seemed that the Queen Devil Queen didn't have much fun. Seeing this scene, the hearts of Dongfang Minmi and the Mermaid Queen turned cold. Gritting his teeth, Dongfang Minmi said, "Warriors, let's welcome this dark dragon together. Let's see how terrifying the dark vile dragons are." Qin Huayu roared, "Prepare the sky-level missiles, prepare the destruction-level missiles." At the same time, in the direction of northwest Qin City, the emissary rode the Demon Eagle and rushed into Great Cloud Sky City to report to the temporary commander of the Council of Light. The Snakeman Empire, tens of millions of troops, separated by thousands of miles of ocean, suddenly emerged from the cracked ground of northwest Qin City and attacked the northwest Qin City's defense line. The Sea Heart Queen had finally made her move. She had finally joined the war, hitting a man when he was down. Chapter 977. The Council of Light was not unguarded against the Naga Empire. But now, there were 2,000 ancient beasts of the Mermaid Empire and hundreds of thousands of Mermaid Empire soldiers in the sea from the Dongli grassland to the northwest continent. The ships of the Naga Empire could not come over. Of course, they could fly over from the sky. But the Naga Empire could send hundreds of thousands of winged cavalry and millions of eagle men. It was impossible to send tens of millions of soldiers by air. Moreover, even if millions of eagle men attacked, the Council of Light was not worried. Because the northwest Qin City had 1,000 Demon Vulture Corps and 100,000 Black Vulture Corps. There was also an astronomical number of small Phoenix-level missiles and small crystal crossbows. It could be said that the Naga Empire would kill as many eagle men as they came. But they did not expect the Naga Empire's army to come out of the cracks in the ground. Without a doubt, this was the work of the Empire of Darkness. First, the Dark Dragons were sent to the bottom of the Naga Empire. Then, the Devil Queen's eye of the premier Naga wand melted the dark matter. Tens of millions of Naga Empire soldiers were sent to the Dark Dragons. Then, the Dark Dragons flew directly to the bottom of the northwest continent. The wand melted the dark matter here. Then, the drilling magic dragons drilled through the hundreds of miles of ground. Suddenly, dozens of huge holes appeared in the northwest continent. Then, tens of millions of Naga Empire soldiers poured out of these huge holes. Of course, things did not turn out to be the worst. At least tens of millions of Naga Empire soldiers did not pour out of Qin City. They landed at the northernmost tip of the northwest continent, a place called North Ming Point. It was the most barren land in the entire northwest continent. There was no life at all. The land of about 1,000 miles was scarred and scarred. Obviously, below this area was the territory of the Empire of Darkness. This North Ming Point was about 3,000 miles away from the northwest Qin City. Of course, the burrowing demonic dragon of the Empire of Darkness might be able to drill thousands of miles into the ground and create an underground tunnel that led directly to the inside of Qin City. Then, tens of millions of Naga Empire soldiers would surge out of Qin City. However, for some reason, the Empire of Darkness did not do so. Instead, they allowed the Naga Empire's army to disembark at North Cry Point. The Snake People Empire's army had landed around last night. The first to discover that the Naga Empire had invaded the northwest continent was a demon vulture warrior who was patrolling normally. Suddenly, it was as if the heavens were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. Then hundreds of huge holes appeared in the desolate earth below. Immediately after, countless soldiers, like ants, crazily surged out from the ground like a tide. The demon vulture warrior was horrified. Immediately he took out a crystal signal flare and shot it into the sky. They were 5 red signal flares that exploded in the air with a dazzling light. This was the highest grade war signal flare. He had just fired the signal flare when hundreds of eagle men rushed towards him. Then, the first battle between the Northwest Qin City and the Naga Empire took place. This patrolling warrior's cultivation was not high. After killing 3 eagle men, he was killed by dozens of arrows. Although this demon vulture had not cultivated in the illusion of the taboo continent, he was still extremely powerful. A demon vulture fought hundreds of eagle men alone. He tore and killed dozens of eagle men alive. In the end, he was beheaded by an expert of the Naga race. This man and demon vulture died heroically in the sky of the Northwest continent. They used their lives to protect the human territory. Even when he was dying, this demon vulture warrior had no regrets because the signal flare had been fired. This signal flare could be seen clearly even from hundreds of miles away. Within hundreds of miles, at least hundreds of patrolling winged cavalry warriors and more than a dozen sentry posts saw the signal flare. Therefore, the signal flare from 3 directions was continuously transmitted. Every 100 miles, there was a signal flare. One direction was transmitted to the Northwest Qin City 3,000 miles away. One direction was transmitted to the Great Cloud Sky City 7,000 miles away. The other direction was transmitted to the West Capital 8,000 miles away. In less than 15 minutes, the Northwest Qin City immediately received the signal flare. At the same time, all the winged cavalry warriors around the North Cry Point did not escape. Instead, they flew towards the North Cry Point. This was because these winged cavalry warriors could not escape after encountering a battle situation. Instead, they had to investigate the enemy and send them back to the base camp. Suddenly, hundreds of winged cavalry warriors flew to the sky above the North Cry Point. Among them, a demon vulture that had cultivated in the illusion of the taboo continent flew directly at an altitude of tens of thousands of meters to observe the situation on the ground. Hundreds of ordinary winged cavalry warriors had just flown to the sky above the North Cry Point when they were immediately besieged by tens of thousands of eagle men. In a short period of time, all of them were sacrificed heroically. Only the demon vulture that had cultivated flew at an altitude of tens of thousands of meters. These eagle men were completely inferior. The experts of the Naga race below directly used their Xian skills to fly up and kill this demon vulture. However, this demon vulture's flying speed was really too fast. Even limitless great masters could not catch up with it. The experts of the Naga Empire did not have the demon spirit fog cloak. After observing for a few minutes, the demon vulture warrior sent out all the signal flares. There were more than a dozen signal flares that recorded the enemy's information in detail. Then, this demon vulture warrior and this demon vulture that had cultivated in the illusion of the taboo continent. They were surrounded and killed by dozens of experts of the Naga race. Another warrior withered in the sky above the Northwest continent. He and the demon vulture could have escaped completely. However, in order to record the enemy's information in detail, they had delayed for too long. As a result, they were surrounded and killed. After receiving the first signal flare, the millions of troops of the Northwest Qin City, tens of thousands of cannons, tens of thousands of giant crystal crossbows, and thousands of missiles were all ready. Of course, as the expected third battlefield, there were not as many martial arts experts as Beijing City. However, there were still hundreds of experts above the martial ancestor realm. The first commander of the battlefield was Qin Wanchou and the second commander was Duan Rian. These martial arts experts all ascended to the top of the northern city wall. At the same time, they immediately sent a demon vulture messenger to the Western Sea region to inform the headquarters of the Naga Empire in the Northwest Sea region. Then, the millions of troops were all ready to go. In less than an hour, the Northwest Qin City received the second signal flare. It was a very detailed signal flare. Enemy attributes, Naga Empire. Enemy numbers, more than 10 million. Enemy air force, about 1 million. Unknown forces. Yes, they come from the Empire of Darkness. Few in number but powerful. Where did the enemy come from? They came out of the ground. Qin Wanchou clearly knew that many patrolling winged cavalry warriors had lost their lives for this simple and incomparably precious information. Now, he wanted to know what the unknown forces in the information, the few but powerful forces of the Empire of Darkness, meant. The information of the invasion of the Naga Empire's millions of troops was also transmitted to the headquarters of the Theater of Operations, the Great Cloud Sky City, from the ground and the sea. Then, dozens of black vultures transmitted the information to Iron Furnace City and Zhongjing City at the fastest speed. The first battlefield, Beijing City, also received the information from the demon vulture messengers at the first moment. Therefore, Beijing City, which was more than 10,000 miles away, was already aware of the Naga Empire's landing in the northwest continent less than 3 hours later. The northern region of the World Society's Dominion Theater of Operations was also further prepared. At the same time, thousands of Demon Dragon Legions and more than 1,000 Demon Vulture Legions transported the newly produced strategic materials to the northwest Qin City Theater of Operations at the fastest speed. Hundreds of martial arts masters in the Great Cloud Sky City, including 3 Infinite Great Masters, 10 Great Masters, and hundreds of Grand Masters, all rode demon vultures to the northwest Qin City Theater of Operations. The Council of Light was about to launch the second large-scale battlefield. That was, they had encountered the Legion of Doom of the Empire of Darkness. Otherwise, with the current power of the Council of Light, even if it was a war on the scale of a world war, the Council of Light could launch a war on 3 or 4 fronts. It wouldn't be a problem to open up 4 battlefields at the same time. They only had cannons, giant crystal crossbows, and armies. At present, the 3 major battlefields used up only 1/3 of the power of the Council of Light. In the southwest continent, Zhongjing, and even the southern barbarian continent, the Council of Light still had amazing military power. On the city wall of Beijing, Dongfang Minmi and Qin Huayu also fully learned about the invasion of the Naga Empire's tens of millions of troops. "You don't have to worry," Dongfang Minmi comforted him. "As long as the Empire of Darkness doesn't send out their military power, although the tens of millions of troops of the Naga Empire coming out of the ground and directly landing is a little shocking, we don't care about the tens of millions of half-humans." In the army of the Empire of Darkness, the Queen Devil Queen was still sitting lazily on the golden throne. Suddenly, the ground below directly split open to form a hole. Then, her wand directly flew out from below. That's right, her wand was actually modified from her soul sword. She could use her brain to control it from thousands of miles away and fly as fast as lightning. The Naga Empire has landed on the northwest continent. "They're coming out in full force," the Queen Devil Queen said. Dongli's dream goddess was Queen Hai Exin. He naturally was very concerned. "Then, will the Empire of Darkness support them?" Queen Devil Queen said, "Your Queen Hai Exin doesn't want to live under someone else's roof. She doesn't want to become a part of our temple of annihilation. Therefore, we've already done our duty by transporting her troops to the northwest continent. Her alliance with us clearly states that as long as the territory of the human countries is conquered by her troops, it will belong to her. If she wants our Legion of Doom to help her, let her Naga Empire become a part of us, and let her become the Demon King's concubine first." Instantly, Dongli's face twitched. This was because he had been dreaming of the Queen of the Sea Heart. Although he was very concerned about the battle in northwest Qin City, the city under their feet was the most dangerous place. On the ground, millions of world destruction barbarian troops, 10 times the number of war beasts, and twice the number of world destruction barbarian cavalry, were crazily charging over. And the most terrifying thing was in the sky. The dark owl dragons of the Legion of Doom were as fast as lightning as they flew directly toward Beiping City. Although the dark colossal dragons were slower, they could still travel dozens of miles per minute. Hundreds of dark owl dragons and 10 dark colossal dragons surged over like dark clouds. Would this city be able to see tomorrow's sun? It was hard to say if the millions of troops in this city would be able to see tomorrow's sun. Dongfang Minmi said to Qin Huayu, "Next, the troops on the ground will have to completely rely on death-level missiles, cannons, and crystal crossbows. Our martial arts army will have to completely deal with the Legion of Doom in the sky." Qin Huayu pulled out his sword and nodded. Understood, Sect Master Dongfang. Looking at the world destruction barbarian cavalry charging over like lightning, there were a total of 500,000 of them. Qin Huayu roared, "Death level missiles, first unit, second unit, third unit, get ready." Each unit was 10 death level missiles. They weighed 40 to 50 tons and were more than 10 meters tall. Under the pull of the demonic dragon and the calculation and command of the warlocks, these death-level missiles adjusted their direction and then reported to Qin Huayu. "Fire!" Qin Huayu ordered. Boom, 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 boom. Immediately, the crystals inside the 30 death-level missiles collided and ignited. Then, the huge objects that weighed dozens of tons roared and flew into the sky. They turned into an arc and whizzed toward the world destruction barbarian cavalry. Hundreds of miles away, the Devil Queen was also stunned when she saw such an astonishingly huge missile flying out of Beiping City. Then, a thought suddenly emerged in her mind. If Yang Dingtian's crystal civilization was allowed to develop like this, perhaps, in less than a few years, Yang Dingtian could really rely on cannons and missiles to completely eliminate the Legion of Doom. At present, these huge missiles could not kill the dark colossal dragons. But what if the power of these huge missiles was increased by 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times? 30 death-level missiles roared and smashed toward the world destruction barbarian cavalry on the ground from hundreds of meters in the sky. Boom, 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 boom. It was a truly earth-shattering explosion. The terrifying blue flames tore the sky apart. These 40 to 50 tons of death-level missiles were equivalent to how many tons of TNT on Earth? There was no authoritative calculation because Yang Dingtian's contribution to missiles and explosives was only to provide a concept and the most primitive formula. It was like opening a Pandora's box. Now, the warlocks of the Council of Light were many times more knowledgeable than him. According to their calculations, the power of the crystal formula and the high explosives in the death-level missiles was at least dozens of times more powerful than at the beginning. Moreover, when the explosives were completely discarded, the power would increase by a lot. Therefore, the power of these death-level missiles should be equivalent to a few hundred tons of TNT. It was equivalent to 1/10 of the atomic bomb of Hiroshima in the Second World War on Earth. The explosion of 30 death-level missiles. The light that burst out in an instant was so bright that people dozens of miles away did not dare to look directly at it. The terrifying shock wave rushed directly to the city wall dozens of miles away. The entire ground was shaking violently. Then, everything within 1,000 meters of the explosion of each death-level missile was instantly smashed into pieces. Even the invulnerable world destruction barbarian cavalry was torn into pieces in an instant. The entire ground seemed to have been swept across. In an instant, the entire area was emptied. Not only the enemy, but even Dongfang Minmi and the others were completely stunned. The so-called death-level missiles were only made with a new crystal formula, but they were 10 times bigger. But the power was more than 10 times that of the Phoenix-level missiles yesterday. This was the true power of the death-level missiles. Yesterday, 200 Phoenix-level missiles only killed 30 to 40,000 world destruction barbarian cavalry. And this time, there were only 30 death-level missiles. However, the 500,000 world destruction barbarian cavalry seemed to have been reduced by half. The death-level missiles and the Phoenix-level missiles were completely different in nature. Dongfang Minmi and Qin Huayu were immediately ecstatic. Song Chunhua was also stunned. She said, "The chief designer of the death-level missile crystal formula said that the power might be amazing, but I didn't expect it to be so amazing." Dongfang Minmi said, "Quickly let the secret factory make 1,000, 10,000. Song Chunhua shook her head and said, "We don't have that many X crystals." Dongfang Minmi said, "Didn't we get countless X crystals?" Song Chunhua shook her head and said, "It's still not enough. However, the sect leader has already provided a new plan for the Warlock Research Association. Directly let the crystals undergo an internal impact reaction. In this way, the power of the X crystals can be increased by 100 times, but the usage can be reduced by dozens of times." Dongfang Minmi said in disbelief, "If this succeeds, then Then we can directly kill all the Legion of Doom. Song Chunhua shook her head and said, "Unfortunately, this is completely theoretical. In the Warlock team, they can't solve it at all. Let the internal impact reaction of the crystal without destroying the crystal itself. Because after reaching a certain level of reaction, the entire crystal will automatically explode. There is no time to enter the deepest level of the internal impact reaction." Dongfang Minmi said, "Then, how long will it take to complete the internal impact reaction?" Song Chunhua said, "The Warlock leaders said that they have organized 100 Warlocks to conduct research. It will take about 50 years to have a certain breakthrough. If they want to make a finished product, perhaps 100 years won't be enough." Dongfang Minmi was immediately disappointed. 100 years, the World Destruction War would have been over long ago. Yang Dingtian clicked on the Chaos World's crystal technology tree. Then, as for what would happen next, he couldn't control it. In order to resist the World Destruction Army, Yang Dingtian proposed the concept of the internal impact of the crystal. As a result, the Warlock leader regarded it as a treasure and immediately conducted crazy research. If the research was successful, then it would be a crystal nuclear bomb. That's right, a crystal nuclear bomb. Yang Dingtian might have really released an evil demon. In order to destroy the other evil demon, he had no choice but to release another evil demon. There was no time to be ecstatic. Countless dark vile dragons and dark colossal dragons had already flown not far ahead. They were about to launch a destructive attack on Beiping City. Qin Huayu asked, "Is this sky-level missile using a new crystal formula?" Song Chunhua nodded. Qin Huayu was overjoyed and roared, "Sky-level missiles, aim at the dark dragon and fire, whoosh 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 whoosh." Immediately, the sky-level missiles on the city wall shot towards the dark dragon. Chapter 978. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Hundreds of sky-level missiles whizzed toward the dark colossal dragon in the sky with long tails of flame. Currently, the missiles in the human countries had not solved the problem of accuracy. The air was still very large. It was even more so for the so-called anti-air missiles. However, it was impossible for these missiles to hit the dark evil dragon. However, it was a piece of cake for them to hit the dark colossal dragon. The reason for that was because the enormous black dragon was simply too enormous. The dark colossal dragon that was 10,000 meters long did not need to be aimed. Whoosh 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 whoosh, when hundreds of missiles were shot toward the dark colossal dragon. Hundreds of dark evil dragons whizzed to the sky above Fair North City like fighter jets. They really did not look like fighter jets anymore. These dark evil dragons were about 30 meters long. However, their bodies were very slender. They only had 2 wings, which made them look very big. They also had 2 scissor-like tails, sharp blade-like claws, and gradually, sharp spikes on their heads. Their mouths were full of teeth like countless small paths. Moreover, every part of their bodies was as hard as steel and pitch black. If it were not for the fact that they could roar and were agile, one would think that they were made of metal. The distance of less than 200 miles would take the World Destruction Barbarian Army half an hour to run. Even the World Destruction Barbarian Cavalry would need half an hour to run. However, for the Dark Evil Dragons, they arrived in an instant. The Dark Evil Dragons should be the only large-scale species in this world that could fly faster than the Demon Vultures. Moreover, they were the Demon Vultures that had cultivated in the illusion of the Taboo Continent. Every time a dark evil dragon flew across the sky, there would be a loud roar. This was the explosive sound caused by breaking through the speed of sound. Dongfang Minmi estimated that the speed of these dark evil dragons, according to Yang Dingtian's Earth time, was at least 6,000 miles per hour, which was equivalent to 3 times the speed of sound. They could fly 1,000 meters in 1 second. Therefore, a short distance of less than 100 kilometers would only take 1.5 minutes. It was completely meaningless to use missiles to hit them at such a terrifying speed. When these dark evil dragons were a few thousand meters away, Qin Huayu immediately ordered loudly, "All crystal crossbows, fire, whoosh 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 whoosh." All of a sudden, more than 100,000 crystal crossbows of all sizes were shooting crazily on the city wall. Every second, At least 100,000 arrows were shot out. In an instant, the entire sky darkened as it was enveloped by countless sharp arrows. This scene was somewhat similar to the war on Earth. When the enemy fighter jets violated the airspace, countless cannons on the ground fired wildly. In an instant, tens of thousands of bullets were fired into the air like a torrential rain. Whether or not they hit the target depended entirely on luck. Every second, hundreds of thousands of arrows were shot out. Each arrow was made of solid metal. Fighting like this for half an hour would consume tens of millions of arrows. But don't worry. The Council of Light's munitions factories numbered in the hundreds and thousands. A standard consumable like arrows that didn't require much skill could be obtained as much as they wanted. Not to mention tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or even billions of them. There were more than a few thousand carriages of arrows being transported to the Beiping war zone. Moreover, it was still being delivered in an endless stream. Amidst the torrential rain of arrows. No matter how fast the dark owl dragons flew, it was impossible for them not to be hit. Of course, if they kept flying at a height of tens of thousands of meters, they wouldn't be hit. However, when these dark owl dragons arrived above the city, they all started to dive down. Clap, 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 clap. Instantly, countless arrows rained down on these dark owl dragons crazily. However, it was useless. The giant arrows shot out by the medium-sized crossbows were 3 feet long. However, they only left a dent on the dark owl dragons' bodies. The small-sized crystal crossbows were already very powerful. They could even kill the devil dragon army of the human countries with one arrow. However, when facing the dark owl dragons, the arrows bounced off their bodies and didn't even leave a mark. Only the giant crystal crossbows could cause damage. Each arrow was a few meters long and had a force of more than 100,000 pounds. Such giant arrows could shoot directly into the dark owl dragons' bodies. Even so, they couldn't kill them directly. Moreover, it was impossible for the giant crystal crossbows to hit these lightning-like dark owl dragons. Therefore, this round of crossbow bolts was like a torrential storm, and the result of millions of crossbow bolts was almost zero. God didn't completely bless the human countries. The effect of the destruction-level missiles just now was extremely shocking. However, these hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbows had almost no results. Then, the massacre of the dark owl dragons began. One by one, the dark owl dragons descended from the sky like devils. Their wings were sharper than the sharpest blade. As they swept across, a row of soldiers' heads were chopped off while they were still alive. Their claws could easily tear fully armed soldiers into pieces. The lightning they spat out could instantly electrocute the soldiers into charcoal. The venom they spat out could instantly corrode the soldiers until only their bones were left. Hundreds of dark owl dragons slaughtered crazily as if there was no one around. Therefore, half of the powerful martial artists on the city wall could only leave the city wall. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. More than 1,000 martial artists flew out from the city wall like meteors and chased after the dark owl dragons desperately. However, only the half-saint-level powerhouses could barely catch up with their speed. Countless great masters couldn't catch up. They could only follow behind and kill. As for the martial guru-level powerhouses, they couldn't do anything to the dark owl dragons. Even if they were hit by the dark owl dragons, they would be seriously injured. For a moment, hundreds of dark owl dragons slaughtered crazily in the city. More than 1,000 martial artists chased after the dark owl dragons desperately. At the same time, the dark colossal dragon flew to a place dozens of miles away from the city. More than 100 sky-level missiles whizzed through the air and hit the dark colossal dragon, which was a humongous creature. Boom, 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 boom. An earth-shattering explosion occurred in the entire sky. More than 100 missiles hit the dark colossal dragon's lower abdomen. At the same time, Dongfang Minmi and the other human experts were even praying. They hoped that the missiles of the new crystal recipe could seriously injure the dark colossal dragon. But what was the effect? They didn't dare to have too many fantasies. After all, they had seen war beasts with armor that was a few feet thick. The dark colossal dragon's body was more than a few hundred times bigger than theirs. If the dark colossal dragon's armor was a few meters long, it would be more than a dozen meters long. Then no missile would be able to hurt it at all. Boom, 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 boom. More than 100 missiles exploded, and the flames dissipated. The worst result didn't happen. The dark colossal dragon wasn't unscathed. However, a good result didn't appear either. Countless big holes appeared under the dark colossal dragon's body. However, it didn't seem to be fatal. The dark colossal dragon's armor wasn't thick and could be blown through. However, its body was too huge. It was completely comparable to a city. Therefore, even the explosion of more than 100 missiles wasn't enough to kill it. This result was really sad. 100 missiles couldn't kill a dark colossal dragon. That meant that there wasn't much point in shooting out thousands of flying missiles. If the missiles couldn't kill it, it would be completely dependent on martial arts experts. Wanting to destroy a dark colossal dragon that was 10,000 meters long? This was already an impossible matter. The dark colossal dragon's energy level was too high. It was completely equivalent to a city. Even a saint-level expert couldn't turn a city into ruins with a single attack. Therefore, only the energy attribute of Naga could easily turn the dark colossal dragon into ashes. This was the terrifying energy attribute of Naga. The dark colossal dragon was still flying slowly. Hundreds of dark vile dragons were still slaughtering in the city. Even if thousands of martial arts experts attacked, they only killed a few dozen of them. Song Chunhua suddenly said, "Master Dongfeng, the attacks of these dark vile dragons are either physical, electric, or highly toxic. My magic fire demonic phoenix is almost completely immune to electric. It's just right to be its nemesis. Why don't you let my magic fire demonic phoenix attack these dark vile dragons?" Qin Huayu said, "As for the dark colossal dragon, maybe there's a way." Dongfeng Minmi said, "Say it." Qin Huayu said, "Let the saint-level and half-saint-level experts fly directly into the dark colossal dragon's body with the destructive missiles. With their cultivation, they can dig a deep hole in the dark colossal dragon's body and then throw the destructive missiles into the dark colossal dragon's body to detonate directly." Dongfeng Minmi said, "Then what about the detonation?" Qin Huayu said, "It's very simple. We can delay the detonation. When the half-saint level experts throw the destructive missiles into the depths of the dark colossal dragon's body, they can directly activate the detonation device. When the time is up, the crystals inside will collide and detonate the destructive missiles." Dongfeng Minmi said, "Okay, let's do it." Song Chunhua whistled. Suddenly, a beautiful fire phoenix flew out from the castle in the city. It was less than a meter in size. It flew directly to Song Chunhua's shoulder and rubbed intimately. At this time, it could already control its flames. It could emit a deadly high temperature and also become harmless. Song Chunhua pointed at these dark vile dragons and said, "Go and destroy these monsters." The magic fire demonic phoenix nodded. Then, it roared and suddenly flew into the sky. Boom! In an instant, its body suddenly exploded. Less than a meter in size, it became hundreds of meters in size. Then, it whistled toward these dark vile dragons. At the same time, the Mermaid Queen led thousands of experts and all retreated to the city wall. Dongfeng Minmi told the Mermaid Queen the plan. Violets immediately led more than a dozen half-saint level experts. Each of them carried 2 destructive missiles and flew toward the dark colossal dragon. Just in case, each of them even brought a bucket of unfreezing water. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen half-saint level experts each found their target and directly landed on the dark colossal dragon's head. This dark colossal dragon was too big. The area of its head was like a square. Of course, because these dark colossal dragons were too big, they could do nothing even if they knew there were people on top of their heads. It was like a dinosaur was incomparably powerful, but if a mosquito landed on its eyelid and sucked its blood, it would be completely helpless. More than a dozen half-saint level experts directly smashed the unfreezing water on the dark colossal dragon's head. Roar! Even the dark colossal dragon, which was 10,000 meters long, felt a burst of icy pain. Then, the armor on its head was directly frozen and became extremely brittle. The half-saint level experts used all their strength and slashed down with their swords. Smack! The top of the dark colossal dragon's head, which had been frozen to the extreme, was directly smashed into a large hole with an area of more than 10 meters. The entire outer armor was completely destroyed. The half-saint level experts carried the destruction-level missiles and madly drilled into the hole. After passing through the thick armor, it became easy to drill further down. They easily drilled directly into the depths of the dark colossal dragon's head. Then, they placed 2 destruction-level missiles on its head and directly turned on the delayed detonation device. After doing all this, these half-saint level experts flew out of the dark colossal dragon's body like lightning. They used the fastest speed to return to the top of the city wall. The entire air seemed to have solidified. Dongfang Minmi and other powerful experts did not even care about the millions of troops below. Their eyes were fixed on these dozen or so dark colossal dragons. Their gigantic bodies were still slowly flying over. The countdown should have already begun. Song Chunhua was relatively familiar with these destruction-level missiles and began to count down in her heart. 10, 8, 7, 6. Before Song Chunhua could count to 0, just as she counted to 2. Suddenly, boom, there was an extremely dull but extremely earth-shattering explosion. One of the 10,000-meter-long dark colossal dragon's body suddenly trembled violently, especially its head, which suddenly shook violently. Then, 2 balls of flames directly spurted out from the top and bottom of its head. 2 destruction-level missiles, which were equivalent to hundreds of tons of TNT, directly blew through the 2,000-meter-thick head of the dark colossal dragon. Of course, such a powerful destruction-level missile still could not blow up the entire head. However, the entire head of the dark colossal dragon was almost blown off. It could no longer support the weight. The huge head suddenly broke off and fell to the ground. And the 10,000-meter-long body of the dark colossal dragon, which had lost control of its head, swayed in the air for a while before slamming to the ground. Dongfang Minmi shouted loudly, "All soldiers, pay attention. Don't let your heart touch the ground." Because there was going to be a terrible earthquake. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions continued to occur in the depths of the heads of more than a dozen 10,000-meter-long dark colossal dragons. The most effective explosion actually blew the entire head of the dark colossal dragon into pieces. The heads of more than a dozen dark colossal dragons were completely broken and fell to the ground. The bodies of more than a dozen dark colossal dragons suddenly fell to the ground. And on the ground, it was all the Legion of Doom that was like a tide. With this smash, perhaps, even the Legion of Doom on the ground was going to be wiped out again. No one had expected this outcome. Chapter 979. How big was the body of the giant dark dragon? It was more than 10,000 meters long and several thousand meters wide. It was equivalent to a city. No one dared to imagine what would happen if 10 dark colossal dragons fell from the sky. The world destruction barbarian army that was madly charging on the ground suddenly felt that the sky was dark. Then, a giant mountain roared and smashed to the ground. A giant object of tens of thousands of meters fell from a height of 10,000 meters. The roaring sound and the strong wind brought by it were completely shocking. Finally, the first giant dark dragon fell. Boom! There was a loud noise, an earth-shattering noise. Then, the whole ground suddenly shattered into countless cracks. The whole ground was smashed into a 100-meter-deep crater. The ground hundreds of miles away trembled violently. In Beiping City, all the light objects on the ground were suddenly shaken into the air. Of course, the most important thing was, below, countless world destruction barbarian army were easily smashed into pieces. Whether it was the ordinary 3-headed and 6-armed infantry or the giant war beasts of hundreds of meters, they were all smashed into pieces. Boom, 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 boom. Then, more than a dozen giant dark dragons continued to fall. It was as if cities and mountains were crashing down on the ground. Boom, 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 boom. The ground in front of the city was completely shattered. The ground was completely torn apart, and a huge deep crater appeared. In the city, the soldiers could hardly stand and were shaken to the ground. Countless ceramic utensils were shattered. Fortunately, the detonation device had become very complicated due to countless artillery shells. Otherwise, it would have detonated directly under this kind of vibration. However, many giant cannons on the turrets were directly shaken out of position. The cracks in the ground spread directly into the city. The vibration caused by the fall of more than a dozen giant dark dragons was almost no less than a magnitude 7 or 8 earthquake. The millions of world destruction barbarian army on the battlefield were completely wiped out in a very special way. A considerable part of the world destruction barbarian army was directly crushed into pieces. Some of the lucky survivors were knocked unconscious and fell into the cracks one after another. The surviving world destruction barbarian army climbed out of the cracks after a slight sluggishness and continued to madly charge toward the city. However, in the face of countless artillery fire from the city wall, their ending was only destruction. The air battle in the city had also reached its climax. The magical fire demonic phoenix that was a few hundred meters long was almost invincible in front of this group of dark evil dragons. Because it was a ball of flame. It was immune to all of the dark dragon's attacks, but the extremely hot flames it breathed out could easily melt the dark dragon completely. The black dragon flew as fast as lightning. However, the magic fire demonic phoenix's speed was not inferior to the dark owl dragon at all. Therefore, the demonic fire demonic phoenix chased after the hundreds of dark owl dragons and slaughtered them in a frenzy. All of a sudden, the dark dragons were decomposed into piles of charcoal by the horrifying high temperature. Then, they were crushed into pieces and fell to the ground. In a short 15 minutes. Only a few hundred dark owl dragons were left. The demonic fire demonic phoenix was carrying out its final massacre. If the demonic fire demonic phoenix was so powerful, did that mean it was invincible? Of course not. The mutual restraint between demonic beasts was very strong. The demonic fire demonic phoenix's parents were much stronger than it, but they were killed by the saint-level ice spirit. The devil fire demon phoenix that was thousands of years old had devoured many Shen flames. Its power was boundless. It could easily destroy an entire city. However, the saint-level ice spirit couldn't destroy an entire city. However, experts of the ice element were born to subdue fire element demonic beasts. The demonic fire demonic phoenix was afraid of experts of the ice element. However, these dark owl dragons could discharge electricity and spit poison, but they couldn't use the ice element. Therefore, they were slaughtered alive. In the distance, the Queen Devil Queen who was sitting on the golden throne was truly stunned for the first time. In her imagination, this should be a one-sided massacre. The cities of the human countries shouldn't have any power to fight back. Yesterday's complete annihilation was just a diversion for the Infernal Queen's dead concubine. Today, the Queen Devil Queen really wanted to completely annihilate the millions of soldiers in the city. However, the army was annihilated even earlier today. Hundreds of dark owl dragons, dozens of dark dragons, and more than 5 million world destruction barbarian army were all wiped out. Moreover, the entire battlefield was completely torn apart. There were dozens of huge pits that were hundreds of meters deep and countless huge cracks. It was completely impossible for the ground troops to get involved. The people of the evil ways were completely stunned. They couldn't believe what they saw. Suddenly, Dongli roared at the Shura vulture, "You bitch, you did it on purpose, you did it on purpose. You bitch, after you slept with Yang Dingtian, your heart was on her side. When the dark dragons were killed by the explosion just now, you should have resurrected them. This way, the Legion of Doom on the ground wouldn't be killed by the explosion. You did it on purpose. I should have torn you into pieces and thrown you to countless beasts to be humiliated." The Shura vulture's eyes turned cold. With a roar, it rushed in front of him like lightning. Its sharp claws tore at Dongli's head. Dongli retreated as fast as lightning. However, at this time, his cultivation was no longer as good as the Shura vulture. His whole head was torn to pieces by the vulture's sharp claws. Even so, the Azura vulture was still not satisfied. In a fit of rage, she used her claws to tear Dong Li's body to shreds and dismembered him into 1,000 pieces. The vulture hated, feared, and respected Wu Yuming. But for Dong Li, it was completely angry and full of hatred. It was a monstrous hatred. Previously, Dong Li didn't provoke her, so she couldn't vent her anger. Now that Dongli took the initiative to provoke her, she immediately took the opportunity to take revenge and tore him into pieces. Suddenly, Dongli's Xian meridians, sea of qi, heart, and brain that were protected by the evil spirit were left. After being torn apart by the vulture, with the help of the evil spirit, Dongli's bones and muscles grew quickly. After a few minutes, he was completely restored. Just now, he was really in pain. The Shura vulture stared at him coldly and said, "If it weren't for the evil spirit's protection, you would have died 100 times. If you provoke me again, I will tear you apart 10 times a day." Dongli's heart was full of anger, but he couldn't do anything to the vulture. He just said to the Queen Devil Queen, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, just now, the vulture didn't resurrect the Dark Dragon. Should she be punished? Even if this lawsuit reaches His Majesty the Demon King, the vulture will be punished." The Shura vulture said coldly, "On the battlefield, I only obey the orders of Her Majesty the Devil Queen. If she doesn't let me resurrect, I can't do anything." Of course, she was such a person. She was eager to push all the blame on others. The vulture was such a sharp-tongued woman. She was even a woman with a dark heart. When those dark dragons were blown to death, she was thinking about whether to resurrect them. However, the Queen Devil Queen forgot to speak. She also deliberately forgot about this. Of course, this wasn't because she pitted the people in the opposite city. Their life and death had nothing to do with her vulture. She just took the opportunity to please Yang Dingtian. If Yang Dingtian questioned her in the future, she would have a reason. She would say righteously, "You see, I could have resurrected the Dark Dragon to give you a fatal blow, but I didn't do so." Of course, a bigger reason was that she also wanted to see these dark dragons smash to the ground and smash countless world destruction barbarian army into pieces. It was a pity that such a big scene didn't happen. So, she clearly had the ability to avoid this tragedy, but she didn't. Just to satisfy her desire to watch a big show, she would rather millions of Legion of Doom die. This kind of thinking was absolutely dark. Now, she was finally satisfied to see this scene. Immediately, she felt a little guilty and doubtful. She said to the Queen Devil Queen, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, should I resurrect these dark dragons now?" The Queen Devil Queen looked at her deeply, then shook her head and said, "No need, it's too late. The energy of those dark dragons has completely dissipated." Vulture whispered, "Then what should we do now?" The Queen Devil Queen said coldly, "Today's ceasefire. All dark vile dragons, all dark dragons, all destruction earth dragons, all burrowing demon dragons, all Legion of Doom." Then, the Devil Queen looked at the city that was still standing in the distance and said slowly, "I want that city to have no living person. I want that city to have no people, no grass, no wood left." "Yes." Everyone shouted in unison. The Devil Queen Vulture looked at Vulture deeply and said, "I know that you didn't resurrect those dark dragons today to satisfy the dark thoughts in your heart. I can forgive you this time. But tomorrow, if you don't make a move, I will take back everything you have." Immediately, Vulture's delicate body trembled, and she bowed and said, "Yes, Your Majesty Devil Queen." Following the Devil Queen's order, today's battle was over. Before noon, the second day's battle was already over. This day's battle still ended with the Legion of Doom being completely annihilated. At this moment, there was a burst of cheers in Beiping City. Today's victory was a true victory. Not a victory indulged by the enemy. The millions of troops in the city fell into a carnival. Then, the information about today's battle was immediately written into a report. It was transmitted to Northwest Qin City, Great Cloud Sky City, and Zhongjing at the fastest speed. As for the results of today's battle, it was directly transmitted to Great Cloud Sky City using a crystal signal flare. In Great Cloud Sky City, it would probably take less than an hour to receive it. At this moment, Northwest Qin City Battle Zone. North Lookout Corner, tens of millions of half-human race troops had finished gathering. Then, like a tide, they marched toward Northwest Qin City. It was because Queen Hai Xian wanted to establish her own country that she did not receive any actual support from the Empire of Darkness. But she knew that the entire Northwest Qin City Battle Zone only had a mere 2 million troops, which was only 1/20th of her own. Moreover, in terms of martial power, because she had the Hell Demonic Array, she had produced a large number of Naga experts. In addition, the original half-human experts were far superior to the Qin City battle zone. Therefore, Queen Hai Xian felt that she could take down northwest Qin City in a few days. Within a month, she could take down the entire northwest continent. The only thing her Naga Empire feared was the navies of the human countries, because the tens of millions of troops of her Naga Empire could not swim across the vast sea. Originally, the navies of the human countries were already extremely powerful and could easily destroy the naval forces of the Naga Empire, not to mention that Yang Dingtian had already obtained the Sea Tribe army of the Mermaid Empire. But now, with the power of the Empire of Darkness, the Naga Empire's army had already landed on the northwest continent. The powerful navies of the human countries were of no use. Therefore, in Queen Hai Xian's heart, her opponent was not the Council of Light, but the Legion of Doom of the Empire of Darkness. The two armies were going to compete quickly, because this continent would belong to whoever occupied it first. In Queen Hai Xian's heart, it would be best for the Legion of Doom to conquer the northern lands and the chaotic lands. As for the Great Cloud Sky City, Northwest Qin City, West Capital, Ironforge City, and the entire southwest continent, they would all belong to her. That's right. Queen Hai Xian's appetite was that big. In her strategy, at least the entire West continent would belong to her. Moreover, she knew clearly that the Council of Light was trading space for time. In fact, the higher-ups of the Council of Light had basically given up on the entire West continent. Otherwise, the huge Northwest Qin City war zone would not only have a mere 2 million troops. Currently, the tens of millions of troops of the Council of Light were almost all in the Middle Continent. Therefore, the Council of Light's strategy was to fight in the West Continent to a certain extent and then start a strategic retreat. They only wanted to protect the Middle Continent and Zhongjing. As for Queen Seaheart, what she wanted was the Western Continent that had been abandoned by the Radiant Parliament. As for the Middle Continent, she knew that it was not something she could touch. This time, she was hiding behind the Empire of Darkness to take advantage of the situation. If not for the Legion of Doom blocking in front of them, the Naga Empire would not dare to attack the tens of millions of human soldiers. The Naga Empire's army at the North Lookout Corner was still 3,000 miles away from Qin City. Along the way, there were many empty cities and countless castles. Originally, the Naga Empire could first occupy these empty cities and then surround northwest Qin City. However, Queen Hai Xian did not have the patience. Her Naga Empire basically did not have much food stored, and the Empire of Darkness's food was completely deducted. These castles and cities abandoned by the Council of Light did not have a single grain of food. Currently, in the entire Qin City war zone, only one place had food, and that was northwest Qin City. Moreover, the food there was piled up like a sea. The richness of the human countries was completely unimaginable. The food piled up in Qin City was enough to feed half of the northwest continent's population for a few years. Therefore, Queen Hai Xian gave a strict order. The half-human barbarian cavalry, the Eaglemen, and the Naga Empire's air force were to arrive at northwest Qin City within 3 days. These millions of troops would first surround Qin City from afar. The remaining tens of millions of Naga Empire's army were to arrive at northwest Qin City within 10 days. Within half a month, they had to take down the entire Qin City. Within a month, they had to take down the West Continent and the Great Cloud Sky City. Under Queen Hai Xian's order, tens of millions of Naga Empire's army rushed toward Qin City crazily. At this time, northwest Qin City welcomed another powerful army. There were more than 100,000 Black Vulture Army and 2,000 Demon Vulture Army, 30 Death-level missiles, 1,000 Phoenix-level missiles, 100,000 aerial launchers and 500,000 miniature short-range missiles. Among them, there were more than 100,000 Phoenix-level missiles. There were also other materials from the Great Cloud Sky City and the West Continent. Countless. Therefore, Qin City had more than 1 million tons of napalm bombs. More than hundreds of thousands of X-crystal bombs were airdropped. Hundreds of thousands of small and medium-sized crystal crossbows. All kinds of arrows were astronomical figures. Qin Wanshou finally received accurate information. In the Naga Empire's army, other than the burrowing demonic dragon that appeared at the beginning, there were no other troops from the Empire of Darkness. This was great news. His handsome face twitched, and he said to the higher-ups of the war zone, "I just received news from Beiping City. Today, the Legion of Doom sent out thousands of war beasts, dark dragons, dark evil dragons, and 500,000 world destruction barbarian cavalrymen. 5 million world destruction barbarian soldiers launched a new round of attack on Beiping City." As soon as these words came out, the faces of the higher-ups of the war zone present twitched, and their hearts twitched. The Legion of Doom finally sent out dark evil dragons and dark dragons. Then it meant that Beiping City was doomed. The fall of Beiping City meant the fall of the entire land of chaos. Then the Legion of Doom's next target was Great Cloud Sky City, the core of the entire war zone. Qin Wanshou said, "More than 2 hours ago, the battle in Beiping City ended." As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression darkened. Qin Wanshou said loudly, "Our Council of Light Legion has won a great victory. All the troops dispatched by the Legion of Doom today were wiped out. At present, more than half of the Legion of Doom that was dispatched have been wiped out." As soon as these words came out, everyone present suddenly showed an expression of complete disbelief. Qin Wanshou laughed and said, "You didn't hear wrong, the Legion of Doom was wiped out. Before noon, the entire battle had already ended. The specific battle situation will be delivered by the Demon Eagle Messenger in a few hours." The War Zone headquarters sent 2 signal flares to confirm that this news is true. The Northern War Zone has won a great victory. Long live, long live. Immediately, the higher-ups of the war zone present finally let out a burst of ecstatic cheers. Qin Wanshou laughed and said, "Now, those clowns of the Snakeman Empire saw that we only have 2 million troops, so they want to take advantage of us. She's completely dreaming. The Northern War Zone's victory is encouraging us." The War Zone headquarters temporarily sent the commander of the Council of Light Air Force, City Lord Kuei Si. Earth Fisher City Lord Kuei Si stood up and greeted everyone. Qin Wanshou said, "Now, the Snakeman Empire's tens of millions of troops are marching towards Qin City. This means that in 10 days, the Snakeman Empire's tens of millions of troops will be completely exposed on the ground. Therefore, the War Zone headquarters has decided on the largest air strike plan in history. This operation is called Nightmare Operation. City Lord Kuei Si is the commander of Nightmare Operation." Nightmare Operation. The Council of Light will dispatch more than 500,000 troops, with the Demon Eagle Legion and the Black Eagle Legion as the main force of the Air Force. They will launch the largest air strike in history against the marching Snakemen Empire army. At that time, there will be hundreds of millions of arrows, millions of tons of napalm bombs, millions of artillery shells, and destructive giant bombs falling on the heads of the Snakemen Empire army. The result will definitely be nightmarish. This airstrike will become Queen Hai Xian's nightmare. Chapter 980. City Lord Hai Lingji of the Mermaid Empire is here to reinforce us, a messenger reported to Qin Wanshou. Qin Wanshou was overjoyed to hear that the Mermaid Empire had really sent reinforcements. He knew that the Mermaid Empire could transform into human form for a long time. Almost all the masters on land had been brought to Beiping City by the Mermaid Queen to fight the Legion of Doom. Although there was no lack of masters among the remaining mermaids, there were even half-saints. However, the mermaid genes in their bodies were far greater than human genes, so it was difficult for them to leave the sea. Leaving the sea for a long time on land had a great impact on their cultivation. Therefore, Qin Wanshou hadn't dared to hope that the Naga Empire would send reinforcements. He immediately led all the masters to welcome them. Hai Lingji was undoubtedly a very beautiful mermaid. However, her face was covered in scales from her neck down. There were even faint golden scales on her beautiful cheeks. Not only that, although she had transformed into legs, she still relied on celestial qi to move. Because of the environment on land, she wasn't in a very pleasant state. She had brought nearly 100 masters with her this time. This was all the masters above the great grandmaster level in the Western Sea. Hai Linji was one of the 14 commanders in the Mermaid Empire. She was also a half-saint, and her cultivation was very high. However, she couldn't stay on land for a long time, and the entire Western Sea needed a commander to guard it. Therefore, the Mermaid Queen didn't bring her to the Northern War Zone. Qin Wanchou led all the higher-ups in a bow. The Council of Light thanks Marshal Hai Linji for her kindness. Hai Linji was already a mother of several children, and her children were all generals in their own right. However, it was still impossible to tell her age. She still had a graceful figure. Although her current expression wasn't very good, she still returned the greeting in a very serious manner. Sect leader Yang Dingtian, you have bestowed the human kingdom's 100,000 miles of sea region to our Mermaid Empire as our new home. This is truly a profound friendship. Protecting the human kingdom is also protecting the Mermaid Empire. Qin Wanchou said, then let us fight side by side. Then, everyone entered the war room again to plan this time's nightmare operation. At this time, the 500,000 aerial legions that were preparing to participate in the nightmare operation were all ready. 2 hours later, Earth-splitting cities Kuei-Si, as the highest commander of the nightmare operation, rode on the demon eagle King Azeo. Behind them, there were 2,000 demon eagles, 200,000 black eagles, and 300,000 other types of winged cavalry. In total, there were more than 500,000 air forces. The 100 masters from the Council of Light and the 100 masters from the Naga Empire all mounted their demon eagles to prevent the Naga Empire from attacking with their warriors. The first objective of these 500,000 winged cavalry warriors was to wipe out the Snake People Empire's aerial forces on a large scale. There were more than 1 million eaglemen. Only after completely eliminating their air power would they be able to safely carpet bomb this astronomical number of ground troops. Therefore, the air force of 500,000 soldiers carried 100,000 launchers and more than 100,000 medium-sized crystal crossbows. There were also hundreds of thousands of small crystal crossbows. As for the crossbows and arrows, he had brought over 100 million of them. As for the various types of missiles, there were more than a few million of them. And the opponent was only 1 million eaglemen. The Council of Light wanted to use hundreds of arrows and 3 or 4 missiles to wipe out 1 eagleman on average. This kind of consumption was extremely shocking. It was really like the US military fighting Afghanistan, where they used tens of thousands of bullets to wipe out 1 Taliban. Qin Wanchou had to stay in Qin City to guard, and Duan Rian would participate in the air attack with him. Brother, I will wait for your triumphant return, Qin Wanchou said to Kuei-Si. Kuei-Si smiled and said, don't worry, the North has won against the Naga Empire, let alone our side. Just wait for our good news. Then, Kuei-Si rode on the Demon Eagle King Azeo and flew directly into the air. Let's go! With Kuei-Si's order, the 500,000 air forces, layer upon layer, covered the sky and the sun, and flew towards the north. At this time, there were no citizens in the entire northwest Qin City. Only 2 million troops were stationed here. If there were citizens, it should be Qin Ji and her mother, Yang Shishir. This woman who had once gone crazy and was sent to a brothel by Qin Wanchou. After Qiu Ruhan completely surrendered to the evil ways, under Yang Dingtian's suggestion, Qin Wanchou finally brought Yang Shishir home. Of course, after all, such a scandal had happened between Yang Shishir and Qin Xiaobai, so it didn't matter if he forgave her or not. He just brought her home and raised her as a family member. Qin Wanchou still wouldn't touch her. After all, he was an extremely proud man, and he had many beautiful concubines at home. After Qin Wanchou learned of Qin Ji's existence, he didn't show any attitude. On the contrary, Qin Huaiyu went to see her a few times. And Qin Ji had no intention of acknowledging Qin Wanchou at all. It wasn't until the Doomsday War broke out that Qin Ji suddenly brought her performance team into Qin City. Then, she even brought her mother, Yang Shishir, out of Qin Wanchou's residence to rehearse the show with them, and then held a charity performance for the elite army of the Council of Light. Qin Wanchou wanted to stop her, but under Duan Ruyan's persuasion, he let her do it. The result was very good. In the show that Qin Ji carefully prepared, the soldiers' fear gradually faded, and their courage to fight gradually rose. At this moment, Qin Ji was in the main hall of Qin City, performing for tens of thousands of soldiers. Then, the sky suddenly darkened. The soldiers sitting cross-legged on the ground looked up and immediately saw countless air forces that covered the sky flying over the main hall of Qin City. Immediately, the soldiers shouted excitedly, "It's our army, our air force." Then, the tens of thousands of soldiers present waved in the air and cheered. On the stage, Qin Ji also stopped her performance and looked up at the sky, at the densely packed air forces. She, who was originally crafty and cold, couldn't help but gradually heat up, and her breathing became rapid. Originally, she didn't have any sense of belonging to Qin City, to this family, or to this world. But now, she deeply felt that this Qin City, this human country, belonged to her. Of course, it also belonged to everyone present. When others sacrificed in order to protect themselves, everyone's heart would surge with that sense of belonging, that kind of love for the world. Hooray, hooray, hooray! The army on the ground desperately waved at the army in the sky and shouted desperately. Suddenly, countless things fell from the sky like raindrops. The soldiers on the ground were shocked at first, and then they caught them and took a look. They found that they were all kinds of exquisite snacks, candies, all kinds of delicious food, and processed snowflake steak. Immediately, the army on the ground was ecstatic and desperately caught the delicious food thrown down by their comrades in the sky. On Earth, the food of the Air Force was the best. It was the same in the chaotic world. There were many exquisite snacks, especially snowflake steak, which were only enjoyed by the Air Force. Therefore, the army on the ground had always been envious of the good food of the Air Force. At this moment, when their comrades in the air were thrown down, the brothers on the ground could also have a feast. Hundreds of thousands of air forces, layer upon layer, spanned hundreds of miles, and flew for a full quarter of an hour before they completely flew over the main hall of Qin City. At this moment, the entire square of the main hall was filled with delicious food. Every soldier's pockets and hands were full. The leading officer suddenly shouted, "All of you sit down, you are not allowed to eat, bring it back to eat with the other brothers. Now, sit down and watch the performance quietly." Immediately, tens of thousands of soldiers immediately stopped all their movements, sat down neatly and continued to watch the performance. In the sky, when the Air Force threw food to their comrades on the ground, the general and commander did not say anything. When they flew over Qin City, Kuei-si said, "After the battle, the person who took the lead to throw the food voluntarily surrender to me and be confined." The officer beside him said, 500,000 Air Force majestically flew towards the north. 3 hours later, they had already flown nearly 2,000 miles. At this moment, they were less than 1,000 miles away from the army of the Snakemen Empire, and less than 400 miles away from the scouts of the Snakemen Empire. Stop. Kuei-si ordered. Immediately, hundreds of thousands of Air Force stopped in the air. Form the formation. Kuei-si ordered. Immediately, the 500,000 Air Force, in units of 100, began to form the formation. Hundreds of thousands of Air Force, layer upon layer, formed an incomparably huge circular arc formation in the air, a circular arc formation with a diameter of more than 100 miles. Missiles into the tubes. After the order was given, hundreds of thousands of launch tubes were all loaded with small missiles. Crystal crossbows loaded with arrows. Immediately, hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbows were all loaded with sharp arrows. Finally, Kuei-si ordered. Light array, activate. Immediately, hundreds of warlocks took out thousands of large crystals. In the air, they set up a light array. Swish, 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 swish. Thousands of large crystals resonated with each other and shot out blue light, connecting the thousands of crystals together. Immediately, the entire huge circular arc formation was covered by the blue light, turning into the same color as the sky. At first glance, it was as if hundreds of thousands of Air Force had disappeared. Demon Eagle Army, attack. Immediately, under the leadership of Duan Rian, 100 experts of the Mermaid Empire, and 100 experts of the Council of Light, the 2,000 Demon Eagle Army whistled towards the army of the Snakemen Empire like lightning. Their purpose was to be used as bait to attract the Snakeman Empire's army of 1 million eaglemen to this hidden circular arc formation and annihilate them in one fell swoop. Whoosh 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 whoosh. 2,000 demon eagles, like fighter jets, flew at supersonic speed of more than 2,000 miles per hour. Soon, they saw tens of millions of densely packed soldiers of the Snakeman Empire. Chapter 981. The tens of millions of troops of the Snakeman Empire were divided into the vanguard and the main force. At present, the two were only 100 miles apart. Because they were in the enemy zone, the army of the Snakeman Empire was absolutely cautious. Nearly half of the Eaglemen were sent out as scouts in the air, monitoring all the areas within 100 or 200 miles of the army. Therefore, when the 2,000 demon vultures rushed into the field of vision, they were immediately discovered by the scouts of the Snakemen Empire. This troop of several hundred eaglemen immediately let out an earth-shattering cry. Then, they immediately turned and fled. Even the eaglemen of the Dongli grassland knew the power of the demon vultures. At present, the hundreds of eaglemen were nothing in front of the 2,000 demon vultures. But no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. The 2,000 demon vultures immediately whistled. The speed of the eaglemen was relatively fast, but compared to the demon vultures, it was nothing. The fleeing eaglemen scouts were easily caught up. Then, they were easily torn apart by the 2,000 demon vultures. There was no need for the warriors on the demon vultures at all. The demon vultures directly used their claws and wings to kill the hundreds of eaglemen. Then, the 2,000 demon vultures swaggered directly towards the army of the Snakeman Empire. How could this be? The commander of the Snakeman Empire was so angry that he almost vomited blood. You only have 2,000 demon vultures? How dare you challenge my tens of millions of troops? My millions of eaglemen will pile you to death. Immediately, the commander of the Snakeman Empire directly ordered to destroy all the 2,000 demon vultures. Creak! There was a burst of ear-piercing screams. Countless eaglemen rushed in from all directions and surrounded the 2,000 demon vultures. There were tens of thousands of eaglemen, and there were more and more. In the end, there were 100,000 eaglemen nearby who rushed up crazily and surrounded the 2,000 demon vultures. From top to bottom, they were surrounded in a three-dimensional formation. Duan Ruyan shouted, "Change the formation." Suddenly, the 2,000 demon vultures also turned into a sphere that could defend any position. "Kill!" the general of the Eaglemen Empire ordered. Swish, 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 swish. Swish, 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 swish. Suddenly, 100,000 eaglemen madly shot out sharp arrows. Of course, the Snakemen Empire couldn't produce small crystal crossbows. What they had was purely strong bows. Every eagleman was a natural-born warrior. Regardless of whether they were male or female, all of them were much stronger than humans. Therefore, the archers of the Eagleman tribe all used super-strong bows that weighed more than a few thousand kilograms. Suddenly, the arrows rained down on the 2,000 demon vultures. Although these sharp swords couldn't be compared to small crystal crossbows, they could basically penetrate the outer shell of any winged cavalry warrior. There were also hundreds of Eagleman experts who directly attacked with sword radiance from afar. It was no wonder that Queen Hai Xian had such strong confidence, because the Eaglemen were indeed a very, very powerful air force. However, they were facing the most powerful aerial army in history, second only to the aerial army of the Empire of Darkness, Dark Owl Dragon. Since the last time a large number of experts cultivated in the Forbidden Continent's illusion realm, dozens of demon vultures also cultivated at the same time. After that, there was almost 2 years of peace. Queen Hai Xian's attitude was ambiguous, and the Council of Light was in charge of the door to the human kingdom. Therefore, the Council of Light successively stopped more than 5 trials in the Forbidden Continent's illusion realm. Moreover, each trial only lasted for about 2 to 3 months. However, the focus of this trial was not only on the warriors, but also on the demon vultures. These 5 trials caused the Council of Light to lose 29 demon vultures. Their spiritual brain regions were completely lost. Although they didn't die, they were completely crippled. However, these 5 trials also allowed the Council of Light to harvest hundreds of powerful demon vultures. Therefore, the sword radiance and sharp arrows of the Eagle Men were completely like tickles to these demon vultures. Most of the remaining demon vultures didn't go through the trials in the Forbidden Continent's illusion realm. However, the surface of their bodies was covered with a layer of hard armor. Moreover, the key parts of their bodies were all covered with light and thin blood armor specially made by the Council of Light. The so-called light blood armor was made from the most expensive metal, magic light silver, to create a large surface. Then, the surface was plated with a layer of more precious and expensive bloody black gold. The characteristic of magic light silver was that it was light and relatively soft, but it was very tough. This material was originally used to make armor for intermediate and advanced warriors. Now, it was used directly on the demon vultures. After plated with a layer of bloody black gold, the defensive power was extremely shocking. Therefore, although the arrows of the Eagle Men were fierce, they couldn't hurt the demon vultures at all. Therefore, the countless arrows that rained down on the demon vultures' bodies were almost the only result was that they were directly reflected. At most, they would leave a white spot. When the 100,000 Eagle Men saw that their arrows couldn't hurt these demon vultures, they were shocked and immediately flew into a rage. "Draw your swords and kill this group of beasts." The general of the Eagle Men roared loudly, and then suddenly drew his sharp sword. The 100,000 Eagle Men all drew their swords and rushed towards the encirclement of the demon vultures. In an instant, the encirclement suddenly shrank. Duan Ruyin sneered cruelly. These 100,000 Eagle Men were nothing more than meat delivered to her. At this time, on the huge bodies of the 2,000 demon vultures, large crystal crossbows were already placed. The so-called large crystal crossbow's power and the arrows it shot were the scale of a medium-sized crystal crossbow. However, its body was very large, more than 10 meters long. Because it was a continuous crossbow, it could shoot up to 30 sharp arrows at a time. And the most skilled warrior could complete the action of changing arrows in 10 seconds, and then complete the activation of the crystal within 5 seconds. Therefore, after 15 seconds, it could be done again. The Eagle Men flew closer and closer, and finally, they were only a few hundred meters away. "Fire!" Duan Ruyin ordered. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The circular formation formed by the 2,000 demon vultures suddenly turned into a terrifying hedgehog. In an instant, countless arrows shot out like a rain of arrows. The scale of the arrow rain shot by the 2,000 demon vultures was no less than that of the 100,000 Eagle Men. This was the power of crystal technology. In the face of these arrows, the Eagle Men didn't pay much attention to them, because every Eagle Man was wearing armor on their vital parts, even their faces were covered with a helmet. But the result made them tremble. The arrow rain shot by the demon vulture army was so terrifying and sharp. It directly pierced through the armor of these Eagle Men, and then directly pierced into their bodies and came out of their backs. Suddenly, the encirclement of the 100,000 Eagle Men seemed to shake violently. Then countless screams and screams sounded. Then in the air, countless Eagle Men fell one after another like raindrops. Duan Ruyin smiled disdainfully. "Your Naga Empire is such a poor and remote place. What kind of armor can you have that can be compared with the Council of Light?" Don't blame Duan Ruyin's rich mentality. In fact, she was also shocked by the burst of productivity after the Council of Light unified the human countries. For example, her previous Sky Phoenix Pavilion was also one of the 27 sections. In fact, it could be considered rich. For the defense of the Sky Phoenix Pavilion, she had also bought a batch of large crystal crossbows from the Divine Weapons Villa. She gritted her teeth and took out several years of savings, but only bought a few hundred of them. Among them, less than half of the large crystal crossbows were large. Basically, they were all medium-sized. And in order to fight this world-ending war, all the resources were integrated. Previously, they needed to spend a lot of money to buy the crystals, but now they sent tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people to dig them out. Previously, the Autumn Water Sword sect, a satellite sect of the Northwest Qin City, produced enough crystals for the entire human countries to use for several years. Therefore, Qin Wanchou had to suppress the excavation and production of crystals on the Autumn Water Island. Now, the crystals excavated from the Autumn Water Island in a month were more than the previous year. Even so, all kinds of crystals could only meet less than 1/10 of the Council of Light's needs. At present, the entire Council of Light had discovered and excavated more than dozens of giant mineral veins. Among them, there were several places that surpassed the Autumn Water Island. Therefore, every demon vulture warrior and every demon vulture was equipped with mithril armor and blood-plated black gold armor. For something like crystal crossbows, it would take more than tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of them to make. If all the crystal crossbows of different sizes were added together, there would be more than 1,000,000 of them. Once the arrow rain of 2,000 demon vultures erupted, it seemed that it would not stop at all. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Countless sharp arrows smashed out crazily like a storm. Those eagle men desperately wanted to rush up and hack these demon vultures to death with their sharp blades. However, the short distance of a few hundred meters was like a natural moat that could not be crossed. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The rainstorm-like sharp arrows quickly reaped the lives of countless eagle men. Moreover, the encirclement of the eagle men was so dense that there was almost no need to aim. It was just a few minutes, but it was a few minutes like hell. More than half of the 100,000 eagle men were killed directly. The remaining eagle men finally could not bear the fear and scattered in all directions. The entire encirclement collapsed directly. Then, the 2,000 demon vulture army directly turned into a sharp sword formation and began to hunt down these eagle men. Suddenly, the scene in the sky became extremely ugly. 2,000 demon vultures were suppressing tens of thousands of eagle men in pursuit. The commander of the Naga Empire was furious and immediately ordered more eagle men to hunt down these 2,000 demon vultures. Suddenly, countless eagle men, hundreds of thousands of eagle men, rose into the sky together and surrounded the 2,000 demon vultures crazily. At this time, unknowingly, the battle in the sky had reached the top of the Naga Empire's army. Suddenly, the demon vulture army dispersed privately, and then, whoosh 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 whoosh, 50 incomparably huge things fell from the sky. What was this? Of course, it was a destructive bomb. Yes, it was a bomb, not a missile. Each of the bombs weighed about 10 tons, which was only a quarter of the total weight of the missiles. However, the power was almost half. Because they did not need to fly, they did not need to waste a lot of space to leave for the flight crystal formation. Carrying 10 tons of destructive bombs on their bodies and flying at full speed, this could only be done by the demon vultures who had cultivated in the illusion of the taboo continent. Looking at the 50 huge black dots descending from the sky, Yi Zichen looked at the 50 black dots descending from the sky. Queen Hai Exine narrowed her eyes slightly, but she did not care very much. She knew that this thing was just a bomb. 50 of them could kill a few people? Moreover, it could be easily destroyed. Go and destroy these bombs. Queen Hai Exine slowly ordered. Yes. Immediately, dozens of experts flew toward the bombs at lightning speed. These bombs flew down from a few thousand meters in the air and were scattered very widely. Therefore, when the Naga Empire's experts caught up, they were already dozens of meters in the air. The Naga Empire's experts, without thinking, directly used sword light and struck out fiercely. Boom, 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 an earth-shattering explosion. Half of the destructive bombs were hit dozens of meters in the air and then exploded. There were also some that directly smashed into the dense Naga Empire's army formation and then exploded. Then the entire earth trembled. The light of the sun in the sky was covered. Incomparably shocking light, incomparably shocking loud noise. The power after the bomb exploded was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Countless Naga Empire's army was instantly turned into ashes. Countless Naga Empire's army was instantly smashed into pieces. With the explosion point as the center, within a radius of about a few hundred meters, all the Naga Empire's army was smashed into pieces. Further out, one by one, broken arms and limbs, or shattered internal organs. Therefore, looking from the sky, dozens of huge holes directly appeared in the incomparably huge Naga Empire's army formation. Those destructive bombs that exploded in the air were even more shocking. This power. The generals of the Naga Empire were suddenly completely stunned. And Queen Hyexian was also completely shocked. She knew that the bombs of the human countries were very powerful. The last time in the southern barbarian continent, millions of troops were destroyed. However, that time, the Council of Light had mobilized millions of troops, hundreds of thousands of air legions, almost 10 to 1. It was normal for the million Naga Empire's army to be destroyed. Queen Seaheart had never felt that there was anything amazing about those bombs. They were all just fancy tricks. But this might was simply too astonishing. This morning, in the Beiping war zone, the destructive missiles directly destroyed all the Dark Dragons, indirectly destroying millions of world-exterminating army. This news was known by Cloud Sky City and Northwest Qin City, but Queen Hyexian did not know. After a while, Queen Hyexian came back to her senses and said hoarsely, "Losses? How many losses?" The Naga Empire's general beside her said in a trembling voice, "It's not clear yet. Perhaps hundreds of thousands." Queen Hyexian almost vomited blood. They were still a few thousand miles away from Qin City, but they had already lost hundreds of thousands. How could they continue fighting? No, they had to destroy the thousands of demon vultures in the human countries. Otherwise, if they were to be bombarded every day, there would be no need to fight. The furious Queen Hyexian immediately said, "Destroy this demon vulture army at all costs." The human countries have a total of 3,000 demon vultures. Their black vulture army is not worth mentioning. The Naga Empire's general said. Under the command of the Naga Empire's general, hundreds of thousands of eagle men flapped their wings and chased after the 2,000 demon vultures. Not only that, the Grand Masters of the Naga Empire also rose into the air and chased after the demon vultures. The demon vulture army seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. They did not linger in the battle and turned to flee. It was as if they had come this time just to drop 50 destructive bombs. Of course, it seemed very reasonable. A long-range air attack had destroyed hundreds of thousands of enemy troops. It was an incomparably magnificent victory. However, it was not so easy to leave after winning. Hundreds of Naga Empire's experts chased after them. Hundreds of thousands of eagle men chased after them. The 2,000 demon vulture army fought and retreated. Soon, all the arrows were used up. Moreover, they were about to be caught up. Then, the warriors on the 2,000 demon vultures destroyed all the crystal crossbows. They threw them away to lighten the load and fled at full speed. Seeing this, the Naga Empire's general was even more overjoyed. He said, "They have run out of arrows and thrown away the crystal crossbows. They are like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Chase after them and tear them into pieces." In this way, after the 2,000 demon vultures had completely angered the Naga Empire, they led hundreds of thousands of eagle men toward the encirclement of the human countries. A fatal trap was waiting for them. Chapter 982. The Demon Vulture Legion completely imitated the feigned defeat in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. They completely threw away their armor and fled in embarrassment. The furious Eagle Man army of the Snakeman Empire chased after them frantically. In fact, if the Demon Vulture Legion flew at full speed, the Eagle Man army would not even be able to eat the dust behind them. The Demon Vulture Legion was worried that the Eagle Man army would not be able to catch up, so they deliberately slowed down. In this way, the Demon Vulture Legion led the hundreds of thousands of Eagle Man army further and further away. And the trap set by the human countries thousands of miles away was getting closer and closer. In fact, this plan could not be more vulgar. Just now, hundreds of thousands of air forces of the human countries flew over from Qin City. Although they were thousands of miles away from the Snakeman Empire's army, they were flying at an extremely low altitude. But as long as the scouts were sent far enough, they could discover the military movement of the northwest Qin City. However, this was a world where martial arts were respected. The art of war was not popular. The hundreds of thousands of Eagle Man army chased after them. Suddenly, a spiritual-type Eagle Man expert seemed to feel a dangerous aura. He could not help but ask the commander of the Eagle Man race, "Your Highness, could there be an ambush?" The chief of the Eagle Man race had been conferred the title of prince by Queen Hai Exin. Moreover, in addition to the territory of the Eagle Man race in the Dongli grassland, there were more than 2,000 miles in the northwest continent. Therefore, according to what Queen Hai Exin said, the land below should be the territory of the prince of the Eagle Man race. Hearing his counselor's reminder, the prince of the Eagle Man race could not help but tremble. He said, "Are you sure?" The counselor said, "I just feel uneasy. I'm not sure." Suddenly, the prince of the Eagle Man race hesitated. He did not know whether to continue the chase or not. However, the entire army of the Eagle Man race was full of murderous intent. It was impossible for them to give up now without any reason. Moreover, if they turned back with the reason that there might be an ambush, Queen Hai Exen would not let them go. Thinking of Queen Hai Exen, the prince of the Eagle Man race suddenly trembled. He was really afraid from the bottom of his heart. Although he was the prince of the Eagle Man race, he was humble in front of a general of the Snake Men. If Queen Hai Exen wanted to kill him, it would be no different from killing an ant. Then the prince of the Eagle Men said, "Give me a definite answer. Is there an ambush or not?" The military advisor was stunned. How could he guarantee that? This was simply the sixth sense of a spirit attribute expert. This sixth sense had occurred many times. Sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. To a large extent, it was completely due to worry. Then, a small plan surfaced in his mind. "My king, if there is a trap, then the 2,000 demon vulture army must be faking their defeat. If we stop, they might turn around and provoke us, luring us to continue chasing them. If there's no ambush and they're really running away, they'll run even faster if we stop." When the Eagleman prince heard this, he felt that it made sense and immediately did as he was told. Then, the prince of the Eagleman tribe ordered all of the Eagleman tribe's troops to stop and regroup. He didn't say that he wasn't going to chase, because he couldn't let it go. If he said that he wasn't going to chase, then everyone's momentum would be gone. Moreover, after regrouping, they could continue to chase, or they could turn around and retreat. After the prince of the Eagleman tribe gave the order, after dozens of miles, the hundreds of thousands of Eagleman tribe's troops stopped and regrouped in the air. At this moment, Kuei Qing said to Kuei Si, "Big brother, the Eagleman tribe's troops behind us stopped. Did they find something?" Kuei Si said, "It's normal to be worried." Kuei Qing said, "Then what should we do now? Should we turn around and provoke them, and let them continue to chase us?" Kuei Si said, "No, at this time, we have to escape even faster and dispel their doubts." Then, Kuei Si ordered loudly, "Everyone, advance at full speed and return to Qin City. Not far ahead, there's our army waiting for us. We'll be safe then." Kuei Si's voice was very loud. Not only did all of the Demon Vulture army hear it, even the Eagleman tribe's troops behind them heard it. Some of the commanders of the Demon Vulture army were puzzled. Why did Commander Kuei Si tell them that there was an army ahead? The prince of the Eagleman tribe was a straightforward person. After hearing Kuei Si's words, he was shocked and said, "There is indeed an army of the human countries ahead. Fortunately, the military counselor reminded us." Then, he wanted to lead the army back despite Queen Hai Exion's reproach. At this moment, the military counselor laughed and said, "Your Majesty, don't worry. The leader of the Demon Vulture army is bluffing. When they saw us stop, they ran even faster. They even said that there is an army ahead. They are afraid that we will continue to chase after them. It can be seen that there is no army ahead. If we rush up and catch up with this Demon Vulture army, it will be a great merit." When the prince of the Eagleman tribe heard it, he felt that it was very reasonable. At this moment, the great formation had just begun to be arranged. He directly shouted loudly, "Chase after them and kill all the livestock of the human countries ahead. Tear them into pieces." Immediately, the hundreds of thousands of Eagleman tribe's main army continued to chase crazily. Even without Kuei Si's reminder, most of the warriors of the Demon Vulture army pretended to be panicked. Even their flight path was a little unstable. When the Eagleman tribe's army saw this, they were even more relieved. And Duan Ruyan couldn't help but laugh. The half-human tribe was indeed a half-human tribe. They were really simple-minded. They could even fall for such a small trick. The demon vulture army attracted hundreds of thousands of eagleman tribe's army. They were getting closer and closer, 200 miles, 100 miles, 50 miles. Then, the demon vulture army suddenly flapped their wings and flew high into the sky. Although the eagleman tribe's army felt strange, they still rushed over directly. Just like that, they crashed into the ambush of the hundreds of thousands of air troops of the human countries. Just like that, they rushed into the circular pocket formation formed by the air troops of 500,000 air troops. After countless eagleman tribe rushed through the crystal light formation, they immediately saw densely packed rocket launchers, densely packed giant crystal crossbows, and medium-sized crystal crossbows. Densely packed black vulture army, golden eagle army, and all kinds of winged cavalry. What was going on? The eagleman tribe's army was shocked at first. It was clearly a blue sky just now. So many air troops of the human countries, how did they appear out of thin air? After the shock, the military counselor muttered to himself, "My intuition is indeed correct." He didn't finish his words. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Immediately, 100,000 small Phoenix-level missile launchers began to fire. 100,000? It was completely an astronomical number. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 100,000 Phoenix-level missiles, like densely packed meteors, shot out rapidly. At the fastest speed, it was more than 3 or 4 times the speed of sound. At this time, the eagleman tribe's army was only a few dozen miles away from the ambush of the human country's army. The Phoenix-level missiles could fly over in a dozen seconds. The eagleman tribe's body was very small, not much different from ordinary humans. Therefore, each of them didn't occupy a large area in the air. Therefore, although the air force of the human countries was only 500,000. However, in terms of size, the air force of the human countries was much larger, as much as 4 or 5 times. Therefore, at first glance, the circular pocket formation of the human countries, which was more than 200 miles long, had completely surrounded the eagleman tribe's army. 100,000 Phoenix-level missiles were fired. Suddenly, an incomparably gorgeous and spectacular scene appeared. In the space of hundreds of miles, countless rays of light whizzed out. Then, there was a violent explosion. This should be the largest bombing of the human countries. Although the Phoenix-level missiles were much smaller in size than the destructive missiles. However, this was the number of 100,000 missiles. Suddenly, the entire sky seemed to have been completely burned. Hundreds of thousands of eagleman tribe's army were almost completely engulfed by the flames. The eagleman tribe's army that had been attacked by the destructive attack even forgot to run away. They just stood in the air in a daze, completely at a loss. They had never experienced such a crazy and terrifying attack. However, this was just the beginning. Next, the 500,000 air forces of the human countries were completely crazy. Like a rainstorm, they fired the Phoenix-level missiles and ordinary missiles regardless of the cost. This was completely using one missile, or even 2 missiles to destroy an enemy. After the missiles, hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbows were fired crazily like a rainstorm. There was no safe corner in the entire space of the pocket formation. What the human countries wanted was a carpet-style bombing of every inch of the enemy. Moreover, they didn't care about aiming at the target at all. It was really dozens of sharp arrows and several missiles that killed an eagleman tribe. Not only that, once the attack was launched, there was no stop at all, just a crazy attack. Because after the eagleman tribe reacted, they would run away. When they stayed in the encirclement, it was the golden time for the massacre. This wave of frenzied attacks lasted for a full quarter of an hour. More than 1 million short-range missiles were shot out. More than tens of millions of crossbow arrows were shot out. Then this area was completely covered by a rain of eagleman tribe's corpses. They kept falling, and falling. Moreover, there were not only corpses falling, but also broken limbs and bones. Then, the surviving eagleman tribe turned around and fled quickly. However, it was impossible for them to run out. The demon eagle army that had been fleeing just now became killers, crazily chasing after them. An hour later, the 700,000 to 800,000 Eagleman tribe's army was officially wiped out. The prince of the Eagleman tribe didn't die. He and the military counselor were directly captured by the human countries. A few hours later, High Exion heard the news that the Eagleman tribe was completely wiped out. Suddenly, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 983. After ambushing the Eagleman army, the hundreds of thousands of human troops did not immediately set off to attack the Naga Empire's army. Instead, they returned to the northwest Qin city. This was because the human air force had used up all the small missiles and arrows in the previous round of crazy attacks. Moreover, Operation Nightmare was a very long process. Destroying the Naga Empire's air force was only the first step, and of course, the most important step. After the hundreds of thousands of air forces returned to the northwest Qin city, they only had a very short celebration. Then they seized all the time to rest. As long as they recovered some physical strength and energy, they would start Operation Nightmare again. They would continue to bombard the Naga Empire's army. As for Queen High Exion, she was completely shocked and in disbelief. Just now, the dozens of huge bombs that were dropped had completely changed some of her thinking. Then, the total annihilation of the 800,000 Eagleman army had completely subverted her thinking. Perhaps, the pattern of war had really changed. But first of all, what should the Naga Empire's army do now? Although Queen High Exion still did not have the concept of air supremacy, she knew clearly that after losing most of the Eagleman army, the entire sky was completely defenseless against the human countries. The human empire's air forces could come whenever they wanted. It would be completely unstoppable. Then, countless bombs would fall like raindrops. So, what would be the consequence? Perhaps, the more than 2,000 miles from here to the northwest Qin city would become the hell that buried the Naga Empire and the graveyard of the half-human race. Then what should they do next? Should they just stop? No, they would become the enemy's target if they stopped. Then, should they disperse the tens of millions of troops? No, that was even more suicidal. Here, there were abandoned castles everywhere. Should they let the army camp in the castles first? Then, they would occupy the northwest continent bit by bit and finally complete the encirclement of the northwest Qin city? In that case, it would be too slow. And the key point was that there was no food in these abandoned castles. The Naga Empire's army had only stayed for less than half a month's food. The only way was to take down the northwest Qin city and get a large amount of food and supplies. Of course, there was one last way. That was to beg the Empire of Darkness, beg the Queen Devil Queen. She wanted to become one of the Demon King Wentian's concubines and become a vassal of the Empire of Darkness. If that happened, the Naga Empire would disappear completely. Was he willing to be like this? No, he was absolutely unwilling to accept this. Therefore, even though the road ahead was incomparably dangerous. However, there was only one path in front of them, and that was to take down the northwest Qin city. Take down the northwest Qin city at all costs. As for the constant bombardment along the way, they could only gamble. Queen High Exion didn't believe that there were many more bombs as terrifying as the previous one in the human world. High Exion didn't care about the many half-human race members that would die. These half-human race livestock, it didn't matter how many of them died. Furthermore, Queen High Exion firmly believed that as long as she could reach Qin city, she would be able to obtain victory. This was because no matter if it was the power of martial arts or other powers, they were completely suppressed. In this way, Queen High Exion still made the craziest decision even though she had lost the entire Eagleman race army. Advance at full speed and reach the northwest Qin city in the shortest time possible. Then, tens of millions of Naga Empire's army surged toward Qin city even more crazily. Of course, most of the Naga Empire's army didn't know that the Eagleman race army was almost completely wiped out. They thought that the Eagleman race army had taken the lead to attack the northwest Qin city. Only a few high-level officials knew that the Eagleman race was almost completely wiped out. Therefore, they had been on tenterhooks, afraid that a large group of enemies would suddenly fly over from the sky and drop those nightmarish bombs again. However, their fears didn't come true. Until the sky turned dark, the despicable human army didn't appear. They probably wouldn't come when the sky turned dark. After all, things like air raids needed to be carried out during the day, and they needed to be able to see the target. Although it was dark, Queen Hai-Exen still ordered the army to march. Suddenly, the entire army lit up countless torches, illuminating hundreds of miles. Then, in the dark sky, the 2,000 Demon Vulture Army and tens of thousands of Black Vulture Army were only a few hundred miles away from the Naga Empire's army. They easily eliminated the Naga Empire's army's aerial scouts and then rushed into the sky above the Naga Empire's army. Whoosh 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 whoosh, countless bombs rained down from the sky. 2,000 Demon Vultures carried a total of 20,000 tons of bombs. 50,000 Black Vultures had brought along more than 200,000 tons of napalm bombs. Countless bombs rained down. Countless napalm bombs poured down toward the area hundreds of miles below. After these despicable Demon Vulture Army and Black Vulture Army poured all the bombs and napalm bombs, they immediately turned around and left without stopping at all. Then, boom 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 boom, hundreds of thousands of tons of bombs and napalm bombs crazily exploded on the ground hundreds of miles away. It burned crazily. In an instant, the sky within hundreds of miles was completely burned. The originally dark night sky became as bright as day. In the darkness, the smell of burning meat was everywhere, and shrill screams were everywhere. Countless Naga Empire's army fled crazily. Queen Hai-Exen was horrified and sent all the Naga Empire's generals to control the army. But in the darkness, it was almost impossible to do this. This place had become hell. However, this was only the beginning. The first bombing had only been carried out for less than a quarter of an hour. There was no time to count the casualties, and the flames had not been extinguished. The black shadows in the second round of the sky whistled again. Another 50,000 Black Vultures rained down 200,000 tons of napalm bombs. Boom 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 boom, another earth-shattering explosion. Once again, the entire sky was burned. However, only another quarter of an hour passed. The third wave of bombing stopped crazily. After another quarter of an hour, the fourth wave of bombing came again. Boom 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 boom. The Queen of the Sea Heart would remember this night forever. When the first bombing happened, she thought it was a nightmare. But who knew that this was only the beginning? Next, every quarter of an hour, such earth-shattering bombing would come again. It kept coming and it kept coming. There was no stop at all. Every time there was a bombing, tens of thousands of aerial legions poured down tens of millions of caddies of napalm bombs. Moreover, they did not aim at the target at all. It was a carpet bombing. At first, Queen Hai-Exen still desperately wanted to control the army. Later, she completely knew that it was impossible. In the darkness, it was impossible for her to control the army. This night was a nightmare for all the half-humans. Countless flames seemed to be burning the entire world. The terrifying hellfire seemed to not know how to stop. In the end, Queen Hai-Exen did not even know how many troops she had left. How many troops had she lost? However, her so-called thinking was completely subverted. It turned out that in the face of another mode of war, in front of another military civilization, no matter how many troops there were, it was completely useless. Because you did not even have the chance to rush in front of others. Sometimes, you did not even have the chance to see the enemy. In the end, Queen Hai-Exen simply gave up completely. She sat in her golden imperial crown, motionless. She only waited for the arrival of dawn. Finally, dawn came. The longest and longest night had passed. For a total of 12 hours, the bombing of the human countries had been carried out every 15 minutes at the beginning. Later, it was carried out every 30 minutes. In the end, it was carried out every hour. However, it did not stop. In one night, Queen Hai-Exen could not remember how many waves of air raids were launched. However, she remembered that in the later air raids, she could almost no longer hear the screams. Finally, dawn came. Queen Hai-Exen suddenly flew high into the sky. She wanted to see clearly how many troops she had left. However, even if she flew high into the sky, all she could see was endless smoke and residual flames. The ground that spanned hundreds of miles was all confused by the smoke and burnt smell. She still could not see clearly. At this moment, the sky suddenly started to rain. The rain became heavier and heavier. In the end, all the flames were extinguished. All the smoke was also extinguished. Then Hyexen saw clearly. What she saw was a scene of hell. Countless corpses as vast as the sea of corpses. On the ground that spanned hundreds of miles, everything was burning. Even the stones and soil were burning. Then, countless twisted corpses turned into charred corpses. There was no way to count clearly. Were there any survivors? Of course, there were. All the masters of the snake people race had survived. Also, the masters of the half-human race had survived. However, in the sea of corpses, these masters were extremely sparse and few. Of course, there were definitely many half-human race troops who had survived. They had escaped. However, they would definitely never come back. Such a war. Queen Hyexen suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. The past was like a dream. Such an incomparably powerful army, such an incomparably powerful empire. They had not even reached the enemy's city and had been completely destroyed. That's right, the Snake People Empire had been destroyed. The powerful Snake People Empire had been completely destroyed. In just one night, the strength of the Northwest Qin City war zone had destroyed the Snake People Empire. She, Queen Hyexen, had even dreamed of using this tens of millions of troops to sweep the entire human countries. Furthermore, most of the fighting half-human race in the Dongli grassland had been destroyed. At this moment, the only ones left were the weak slaves. Queen Hyexen let out a mournful roar. I can't accept this. Then, she fell from the sky and fainted. Chapter 984. After an unknown period of time, Queen Hyexen slowly woke up. She was surrounded by the masters of the Naga Empire. Seeing that Queen Hyexen had woken up, it was as if they had found their backbone. In the entire Naga Empire, there might be countless people who hated Queen Hyexen, but at least the masters of the Naga race under her were truly loyal to her. This was because these people were all promoted by Queen Hyexen, and their cultivation was also bestowed by Queen Hyexen's sacred land. Without Queen Hyexen, they would lose everything. Queen Hyexen glanced at the luxurious tent, which was densely packed with masters of the Naga race. Your Majesty, although most of the half-human livestock are dead, the masters of the Naga race are still there. However, the experts of our Naga tribe are still here. Other than the one in front of you, there are still tens of thousands of Naga tribe outside. A beautiful Naga race woman knelt down and said, as long as the Naga race exists, the Naga Empire will exist. Those half-human beasts are just consumables. At this moment, not only were there tens of thousands of Naga race people outside the tent, there were also many masters of the half-human race. When they heard this, they were instantly infuriated. At this time, the Naga race still did not treat the half-human race as humans. Another Naga race woman said, Your Majesty, we still have tens of millions of slaves in the Dongli grassland. The human countries can't even fend for themselves now. It's impossible for them to cross the sea and enter the Dongli grassland. Queen Hyexen slowly sat up. Regarding this war, she had thought of countless outcomes, but she had never thought of such an outcome. They were still a few thousand miles away from the Northwest Qin City, and they were completely annihilated. Moreover, they did not even see the enemy. Previously, she had vowed that she would conquer the Northwest Qin City within half a month, and conquer Cloud Sky City and the entire West Province within a month. Now, it seemed like a joke. In just one day, the entire army was annihilated. Moreover, the human countries did not suffer any losses. How could there be such a war in the world? A thought came to Queen Hyexen's mind. The world had changed. This world had been changed by Yang Dingtian. Even if Yang Dingtian was not around, the Council of Light could easily destroy the Naga Empire. It was as easy as blowing off dust. Everything he had said had turned into complete ignorance and stupidity. So, what should he do next? No matter what, he had to make a choice immediately. Directly retreat to the Dongli grassland? No, that would be too humiliating. But if he didn't return it? What should he do? Was he going to lead tens of thousands of serpent men to attack the northwest Qin city? That was a complete joke. It was impossible. He couldn't move forward, nor could he retreat, nor could he stay where he was. Then the only way was to completely surrender to the Empire of Darkness. Become the concubine of the Demon King Wenin, completely become a vassal of the Empire of Darkness, then get a piece of land and continue to call the wind and summon the rain? No matter how unwilling he was, he had already lost his greatest asset. Most importantly, he was full of hatred. He hated the human countries and Yang Dingtian to the bone. It was Yang Dingtian and the Council of Light who made him suffer this great humiliation and caused him to completely lose the Naga Empire. He couldn't let them be complacent. He couldn't let the Council of Light be complacent. He couldn't let Yang Dingtian's enemies be complacent. Since you made me feel pain, then I'll return it to you tenfold, 100-fold. I'll let you feel heart-wrenching pain. Queen Hyexin stood up from the bed, looked at the serpentmen and said, "You're right. The Naga Empire is still here. From the beginning, I've protected you, and I'll continue to protect you. Perhaps our enemies are laughing wildly thousands of miles away, but soon they won't even be able to cry." Suddenly, the upper echelons of the serpentmen were shocked. Queen Hyexin said slowly, "I'll go and borrow troops from the Empire of Darkness. I'll agree to their request. I'll lead the Legion of Doom of the Empire of Darkness. I'll completely submerge the city in front of us. I'll slaughter everyone in that city. We will tear apart every inch of flesh and skin of those who have harmed our Snakemen Empire. We will kill every single one of them, every single one of them, every single one of them, every single one of their families. I'll make the entire West Continent cry and tremble at my feet. Long live the Queen!" Suddenly, all the serpentmen shouted cruelly. Whoosh! Suddenly, Queen Hyexin turned into a stream of light and flew toward the Empire of Darkness. Yesterday, the Beijing Theater of Operations was in a carnival after the battle ended early. Dongfang Minmi didn't stop this carnival, but all the upper echelons of the Theater of Operations were gathered together for a meeting. After a long time, Dongfang Minmi said slowly, "From tomorrow onwards, it'll be a bitter battle, a battle to the death." Immediately, all the upper echelons nodded. All the upper echelons didn't get carried away by the victory. Because the Shura Vulture didn't make a move today. Dongfang Minmi said, "Your Majesty, is it possible to win over the Shura Vulture?" Queen Violet said, "Of course it's possible. Your sect Master Yang Dingtian has planted a seed in her body and mind. Her heart has always been biased toward Yang Dingtian. However, this seed is far from blossoming and bearing fruit. Although I've had little contact with her, according to Yang Dingtian's description, this woman is very greedy and vain. Any justice is nothing in her eyes. The only thing useful to her is that she wants to be reborn, dignity, pride, and Yang Dingtian's approval." Then Queen Violet said, "Today, she didn't make a move on purpose. However, once the Queen Devil Queen orders her to make a move, she will definitely make a move. She will definitely not take the risk for us. As for the consequences of her making a move, we don't know at all." Dongfang Minmi was silent for a moment and said, "How many Dark Colossal Dragons and Dark Vile Dragons are left in the Legion of Doom?" Queen Violet said, "Nearly 100 Dark Colossal Dragons and nearly 3,000 Dark Vile Dragons. Of course, the Earth Dragon of Destruction and the Earth Drilling Dragon haven't appeared yet." Dongfang Minmi was silent for a long time. After a long time, he said, "I want all the large-scale troops in Beiping City to withdraw. In addition to the crossbow troops, the artillery troops, and the logistics troops. The remaining millions of troops will withdraw to Great Cloud Sky City. How about it?" As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Then they immediately understood what Dongfang Minmi meant. The reason why millions of troops were stationed in Beiping City and the countless castles behind it was to express the Council of Light's will to resist. As for complete victory, they had never thought about it. Then now that they had won 2 days in a row, it was enough to express the Council of Light's will. Moreover, Everyone saw clearly that in this war ordinary elite soldiers had no chance to fight. They could only be sacrificed in vain. To fight these lost legions, they relied on weapons of mass destruction. Giant cannons and giant missiles. Of course, there was also powerful martial arts. Dongfang Minmi continued, the artillery troops and the crossbow troops will withdraw to Great Cloud Sky City after using up all the crossbow bolts and shells. Our martial arts troops will hold on until the last moment. We will hold on for as long as we can. How about it? All the martial arts masters present shouted in unison. Some people even wanted to directly shout that they would live and die with Beiping City. After thinking about it, they felt that it was unnecessary. The current strategy of this war was to stall for time as much as possible. Dongfang Minmi said, then, let's carry it out. Soon, Qin Huaiyu went down to gather the dozens of leaders of the troops and announced the war zone's orders. Immediately, these commanders were seriously puzzled. Why did they have to leave? They had clearly won today. Most of the soldiers had not even used a single staff. Why did they have to leave with their tails between their legs? What kind of humiliation was this? Almost all the commanders sat down in protest, expressing that they would live and die with the city and the war zone. After a moment of silence, Qin Huaiyu said directly, the fall of the Beiping war zone and the fall of the entire fringe is only a matter of time. Maybe 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? When these words came out, all the leaders were shocked and said, didn't we just win a great victory? Qin Huaiyu said, this great victory is indeed inspiring. However, we do not have enough destructive missiles. Moreover, the enemy did not use their full strength. They did not even use their trump cards. Our troops will only be sacrificing themselves for nothing if they stay here. Now, the war zone needs you to retreat to Great Cloud Sky City and begin to deploy the defense of Great Cloud Sky City. When these words came out, the eyes of the war zone's commanders were burning. They said, Officer Qin, will the Beiping war zone and the fringe fall? Qin Huaiyu said decisively, definitely. Not just the Beiping war zone, the entire Cloud Sky City war zone, the northern war zone, and the northwest Qin City war zone will fall. Our best result is that the northern region of the Sunset Mountains will fall. Instantly, the entire room fell into a dead silence. Then a commander said, Then what's the worst plan? Qin Huaiyu said, there is no worst plan. However, in the strategic deployment, the biggest bottom line is to protect Zhongjing. When these words came out, everyone was shocked. This meant that the entire West Continent, East Continent, and most of Central Continent would fall. 3/4 of the entire world would fall. We clearly won. Suddenly, a commander could not help but cry and say in a hoarse voice. Qin Huaiyu said, unfortunately, we have too few destructive weapons. If we were given a year, we would be able to crush all these demons. However, we have too little time. A commander said, Then this war will we definitely lose? Will we definitely perish? Qin Huaiyu said even more decisively, when sect leader Yang Dingtian returns as a king, it will be the time of our victory. I can tell you that sect leader Yang Dingtian is currently seeking the power of the Naga royalty. He said that he would definitely rush back as soon as possible. Think about it, when has he ever disappointed us? Everyone shook their heads desperately. Yang Dingtian had a mixed reputation among the people. However, in the front-line elite army, even when Yang Dingtian's cultivation was not high, he had a godlike status. In the front-line elite army, all the soldiers worshipped Yang Dingtian with incomparable fanaticism. They believed in Yang Dingtian. Because Yang Dingtian was invincible. At any moment and in any desperate situation, Yang Dingtian would always be able to obtain victory without any exception. Then this time, there would definitely be no exception. Qin Huaiyu said loudly, Moreover, I can tell you, our sect leader Yang Dingtian is the spokesperson chosen by the god of chaos. He represents the will of the entire chaos world. He will never be defeated. That's right, sect leader Yang Dingtian will never be defeated. A commander shouted loudly. Qin Huaiyu said, So, what we need to do now is to buy time for sect leader Yang Dingtian. The longer we resist, the smaller the losses of the human countries. We will use our lives in exchange for time for sect leader Yang's return as a king. Immediately, the commanders present felt their blood boil. Qin Huayu said, "Then obey the order. Use the fastest method to evacuate to Great Cloud Sky City. Don't bring too much weight. Wear all the strategic weapons and mounts. There are countless castles along the way, and we have countless food. It will be enough to support you until you return to Great Cloud Sky City." Immediately, the dozens of commanders present bowed and responded. In the evening, even though it was filled with endless confusion and incomparable pain, but the soldiers in Beiping City still obeyed the order and evacuated the city one after another. Countless troops, densely packed, evacuated towards the south. Along the way, the countless castles in the land of chaos, after receiving the order, all evacuated. Dawn of the next day. In the entire huge city, millions of troops had evacuated. Only a few 100,000 crystal crossbow legions and a few 100,000 artillery legions were left. Now, only a few dozen destruction missiles were left. All kinds of sharp arrows were left with an astronomical number. All kinds of artillery shells were still an astronomical number. There were a few hundred missiles above the ton level. Of course, the greatest force was still the martial arts legion of thousands of people. Dawn arrived, and the sun slowly rose once again. This time, the Queen Devil Queen did not smile at all. She directly waved her jade-like hand. Then, there was an earth-shattering roar. Dozens of incomparably huge destruction earth dragons suddenly drilled out of the darkness. They were 100 miles long and a few miles thick. Such a huge monster had never been seen or heard of before. Boom, 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 boom. Dozens of destruction earth dragons suddenly rolled on the ground. In an instant, the ground that was still full of devastation yesterday, with countless cracks and huge pits, was all pressed tightly and flat. Then all the Legion of Doom came out in full force. Queen Devil Queen glanced at Shura Vulture and said, "Today, it's up to you." Vulture said. Chapter 985. The torn land in front of Beiping City was flattened by dozens of destruction dragons in a short period of time. Then, countless Armageddon Legion charged forward in a frenzy. Tens of millions of World Destruction Barbarian Army and millions of World Destruction Barbarian Cavalry. Tens of thousands of war beasts. There were also thousands of dark valiant dragons flying toward them like fighter jets. Nearly 100 dark dragons roared as they charged over. In an instant, there were no other colors in the whole world. Everything was pitch black. The whole sky was shrouded in darkness. The light of the two suns could no longer penetrate. This darkness was so huge that it was suffocating. It quickly shrouded Beiping City. At this time, there were about 70 destruction missiles left in Beiping City. Dongfang Minmi said to the Mermaid Queen Violets, "Your Majesty, please. There is only one goal in this battle, and that is to destroy the power of the Legion of Doom as much as possible. The more Legion of Doom we destroy today, the less pressure Cloud Sky City will be under in the future." The Mermaid Queen nodded and said, "I understand." Then, she directly led a dozen half-saint experts, put on the destruction missiles and unfreezing water, and flew toward the Dark Dragon again. Soon, the Mermaid Queen and a dozen half-saint experts flew to the top of the Dark Dragon's head again. This time, they used the unfreezing water to solidify the Dark Dragon's head and then smashed it into pieces. Then, they directly drilled into the Dark Dragon's head with the destruction missiles and activated the delayed detonation of the destruction missiles. Then they flew out suddenly. Boom, 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 a series of earth-shattering explosions occurred. The effect was exactly the same as before. The Dark Dragon's head was suddenly blown off, and then its huge body fell down, smashing countless World Destruction Barbarian Army to death. If it was still the same ending. Then, if the bodies of hundreds of Dark Dragons fell down, countless Legion of Doom on the ground would be smashed into pieces and turned into meat paste. The Queen Devil Queen immediately looked at the Shura Vulture beside her. Taking a deep breath, the Shura Vulture was worried and excited. Then she suddenly operated the special energy in her brain. In an instant, her whole body burst out with purple light. The huge wings behind her suddenly rose into the air. Her two beautiful eyes instantly shot out a bright light. Her long hair fluttered in the wind. In the darkness of the whole world, only the vulture's beautiful body radiated light. At this time, the vulture had entered a very mysterious state. She could clearly feel all the energy aura between heaven and earth and could easily control them, especially the energy aura of the Armageddon Legion. She was pleasantly surprised and terrified. She seemed to not only be able to resurrect the shattered dark colossal dragon, but also she seemed to be able to crush countless Armageddon legions. This discovery of her made her extremely excited and extremely scared, because this ability of his could very well cause the Shrine of Extermination to kill him. And with this ability, perhaps the people of the Empire of Darkness would never trust her. Over the past few days, the Azura Spirit Vulture had deeply understood this point. On the surface, she was the #1 commander on the battlefield, but in fact, she was nothing. Whether it was Dongli, Mudan, Prince Li Ming, or that mysterious person, it was impossible for them to obey any of her orders. Even the second-class and third-class dark spirits did not really take her seriously. The vulture quickly figured out that as long as there was no dark energy, she was an outsider in the Empire of Darkness. She was inferior. Not only herself, but even the Naga Empire's Queen Hai Xen was an outsider. Then, who else in this world would trust her? Instinctively, a figure appeared in the vulture's mind, and that was Yang Dingtang. Although they were once enemies, as long as she stood by his side, he would definitely trust her without reservation, even if she had once helped the Legion of Doom on the battlefield. Regarding this point, Yang Dingtian had mentioned it again and again. His original words at that time were to keep the hope of standing by his side. He knew that she was greedy, vain, and afraid of death, but he was still willing to tolerate these shortcomings and accept her. In an instant, the vulture's heart rippled, and a numb feeling surged in her body again. It made her have an impulse to immediately kill the Legion of Doom. Then she would fly to Yang Dingtian to show off her achievements and how powerful she was. But she did not dare. She knew that if she did, she would definitely die, and it would be even more painful than death. Moreover, she knew that even Yang Dingtian did not think that she would stand by his side immediately, because he felt that he still did not have the ability to protect her. In an instant, the confused and helpless heart of the vulture seemed to become completely clear. There was still hope in her heart. When Yang Dingtian was able to protect her, she would return to his side. She would regain her previous arrogance and beauty. These thoughts flashed through her mind. Then the vulture began to cast. Under the earth-shattering bombardment, the heads of the dark colossal dragons were smashed into pieces. However, under the control of the vulture, these shattered energy bodies quickly condensed. Thus, a shocking scene happened. The heads of the dark dragons that had been blown up quickly condensed and recovered. Then they returned to the body of the dark dragons. In the end, a dark dragon that had been killed by the explosion was resurrected. The key was that the vulture recovered very quickly. In a short moment, more than 10 dark dragons were all resurrected. Once again, they flew towards Beiping City. Dongfang Minmi was completely stunned when he saw this scene. No wonder Yang Dingtian valued this girl so much. Her ability was really earth-shattering. She could directly resurrect such a huge dark dragon. If this kind of ability could be reversed, then this girl would be his trump card. This kind of talent was called the talent of a celestial spiritual master. How did it come about? Why was it like this? No one knew. Even the vulture did not know how he did it and why he had such a talent. However, in this way, the Radiant Parliament was in an extremely passive position. The Mermaid Queen Violets had to once again send out more than 10 demi-saint-level experts. Once again, she buried the destructive bomb deep into the dark dragon's head. Boom, 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 boom. Once again, the heads of more than a dozen dark dragons were smashed into pieces. But, in another moment, the Shura Vulture made the shattered heads of the dark dragons condense and recover again. The dark dragons were resurrected again. The Mermaid Queen Violets was about to vomit blood. Her gaze towards the Shura vulture was filled with infinite hatred. She really wanted to lead all the experts to directly kill the Shura vulture. But obviously she did not have this opportunity. The demon queen, undead concubine, led all the evil spirit experts to guard the Azura spirit vulture. At this time, the millions of world destruction barbarian cavalry were getting closer and closer to the city of Beijing. Fire! Qin Huayu gave the order. Immediately, thousands of cannons and hundreds of missiles roared wildly. Countless cannonballs poured down like a rainstorm once again. In an instant, countless world destruction barbarian cavalry were instantly shattered. And the Mermaid Queen once again led the experts to smash the Dark Dragon's head with destructive missiles. Then, the Shura vulture once again performed a crazy and gorgeous performance. Not only resurrected all the Dark Dragons. Moreover, she resurrected all the thousands, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of world destruction barbarian cavalry on the ground. Such a gorgeous and incomparably strange scene appeared on the battlefield. Those world destruction barbarian cavalry that had been shattered suddenly quickly condensed and resurrected like a movie rewinding. They were not even affected at all and continued to charge crazily towards Beijing. Suddenly, the martial arts experts on the city wall were completely stunned. How is this possible? To think that the Armageddon Legion would have such a shocking trump card. Countless Legion of Doom that had died were actually resurrected on the spot so crazily? Then how was this war going to be fought? The war continued. The Mermaid Queen was still using destructive missiles to destroy the Dark Dragon. Because she firmly believed that the Shura vulture's resurrection ability was not endless. Her energy would eventually be exhausted. Thus, the Dark Dragon was destroyed once again. And the thousands of cannons and hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbows on the city wall were crazily attacking. However, the main character on the battlefield was no longer the Dark Dragon, the Dark Evil Dragon, or the martial arts army on the city wall. There was only one main character on the entire battlefield. And that was the Shura vulture. Everyone was watching her gorgeous performance. Her energy seemed to be limitless. The dead Dark Dragon was resurrected again and again. Countless apocalyptic barbarian cavalry that had been torn apart instantly gathered on the spot and resurrected. Seeing this scene, the dark spirits who had been disdainful of the Shura vulture were suddenly stunned. Including Dongli and Li Ming, they were all shocked. This was too amazing. No wonder His Majesty the Demon King wanted to give this greedy and vain woman such a high status. She was really irreplaceable. Not only in the current war, but also in the future war of other planes. She was also irreplaceable. And the Shura vulture seemed to be completely immersed in her own world. She crazily continued her performance. She resurrected everything on the battlefield, including the worthless apocalyptic barbarian cavalry and the apocalyptic barbarian cavalry that had been trampled to death by the war behemoths. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Legion of Doom were all resurrected in her hands. Seeing this scene, the Devil Queen nodded in relief. Although the vulture was fickle, as long as she was addicted to this sense of accomplishment and performance, there would be no problem. She would continue to perform like this. Then, there was no suspense in today's war. After all the missiles of destruction were used up, Zhang Hanyang's eyes lit up. The Dark Dragon was resurrected again and again by the Shura vulture. Finally, the Dark Dragon finally arrived above the city. And the apocalyptic barbarian cavalry that should have been destroyed by countless artillery and missiles were resurrected again and again. Then, they rushed toward the city wall like a tide. Not to mention, the lightning-like Dark Dragon had already flown above the city and was crazily destroying the entire city. So, darkness had completely swallowed this huge city. Countless Dark Dragons destroyed every inch of the city in the air. Countless apocalyptic barbarian cavalry rushed toward the city wall like a tide. Although thousands of martial arts legions were crazily killing these apocalyptic barbarian cavalry. But the speed of killing might not be faster than the speed of resurrection. So, countless apocalyptic barbarian cavalry rushed directly into the city wall. And the most terrifying Dark Dragon flew above the city. One breath, In an instant, monstrous flames filled the sky. Countless houses were burned to ashes. Another puff of air. It was a shocking lightning. In an instant, everything on the ground was torn apart. There were also earth dragons of destruction and earth-drilling demon dragons. They easily drilled into the city. In an instant, the entire city was riddled with holes. Then, a few earth-drilling demon dragons exerted force together. In an instant, the entire magnificent city wall seemed to have suffered an unprecedented earthquake. It was directly torn apart and collapsed. At the same time, thousands of martial arts experts flew out like lightning. And the hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbowmen and tens of thousands of cannoneers inside the city wall were all buried under the collapsed city wall. All of this happened so suddenly. 2 days ago, one victory after another was still a victory. Then, Ashura Vulture completely destroyed all the resistance of the Council of Light. In less than 4 hours, this huge city was directly destroyed. It couldn't even be said to have fallen, but was directly and completely destroyed. Fortunately, millions of troops had already evacuated. Otherwise, under this city, there would be millions more dead souls. Now, countless Legion of Doom were crazily destroying every part of this huge city. The Mermaid Queen Violets said to Dongfang Minmi, "It's time to evacuate. The entire land of chaos, this city, has fallen." Dongfang Minmi looked at the Shura Vulture in the distance and said, "As long as she is here, Great Cloud Sky City, Shijing, Iron Furnace City, and even Zhongjing will all be the same. They will be like today, without the slightest ability to resist and instantly turned into ruins." The Mermaid Queen Violets looked at the Shura Vulture with a complicated gaze. She was still performing crazily. It was as if she wanted to resurrect everything on the ground. She had even summoned all the other elements and countless dead souls here. All of them were resurrected. The Mermaid Queen was a woman. Suddenly, in this madness, she understood the thoughts of the vulture. Maybe the Shura Vulture also has her plans. The Mermaid Queen said, "Sect Master Dongfang, retreat and prepare to defend Great Cloud Sky City." Dongfang Minmi looked at the city that had turned into ruins in pain and suddenly ordered, "All martial arts legions, get into formation and retreat." Then, thousands of martial arts legions formed a powerful formation and quickly retreated. At this moment, the radiant Azura Spirit Vulture suddenly let out a miserable cry. It directly fell from the sky. "Yang Dingtan, this is all I can do for you. You have to come back quickly and let me return to your side." The moment before it fainted, the vulture thought in its heart. Chapter 986. Vulture had exhausted all her spiritual energy. Of course, she did it on purpose. The entire process just now looked incomparably gorgeous and terrifying. Shura Vulture, for a full 4 hours, was constantly reviving energy life forms. At least hundreds of dark dragons, and countless dark dragons that were destroyed by the Martial Arts Legion. There was also an astronomical number of World Annihilation Barbarian Cavalry and World Annihilation Barbarian Army. In the end, she even summoned all the energy life forms and elemental life forms in this area. The entire scene was undoubtedly extremely shocking. However, it also directly exhausted all her spiritual energy. In the process of using the Celestial Spirit Master talent, Vulture was surprised to find that even though she was reviving a huge monster like the Dark Dragon, it didn't consume much of her spiritual energy. It was as if the law of energy balance had lost its effect here. A mere Shura Vulture could actually revive an entire battlefield. Although Vulture didn't understand why it was like this, she was still more aware of her own value and suddenly became even more terrified. She was naturally suspicious and didn't even trust her own father very much. Therefore, she felt that it was more dangerous for her to stay in the Empire of Darkness. Therefore, she became even more determined. As long as Yang Dingtian had the ability to protect her, she would immediately defect and return to Yang Dingtian's side. Therefore, she frantically used her Celestial Spirit Master talent. She summoned countless energy life forms and revived countless Legion of Doom. For a full 4 hours, she revived millions of Legion of Doom and summoned countless energy life forms. Finally, he exhausted all of his spiritual energy. Suddenly, her entire head felt as if it had been scraped by a sickle, and it was incomparably painful. A golden light suddenly flashed in front of her eyes, and her entire body seemed to be empty, and she completely fainted. The Devil Queen's dead concubine immediately went to catch the falling vulture. Then she probed her spiritual energy and mystic meridians. She confirmed that Vulture had really fainted and wasn't faking it. Thinking about it, it was normal. Vulture discovered her talent on the battlefield and saw that she had become the absolute protagonist. Greedy for vanity, she performed even more crazily, so much so that her spiritual energy was completely exhausted, and she completely fell. In fact, Queen Devil Queen was also very surprised. She hadn't expected Vulture's celestial spiritual master talent to be so terrifying. After she obtained Shura's body and cultivation, she was able to revive all the Legion of Doom on the battlefield. This amount of energy was truly shocking. Suddenly, the Queen Devil Queen was even more determined to have this Vulture in her hands. If she wants to betray the evil ways and side with Yang Dingtian, she must be eliminated immediately. However, Queen Devil Queen wasn't very worried about Shura Vulture's betrayal. In her heart, Vulture's cowardice and vanity made up the majority of her character. Would she abandon everything she had for the sake of so-called justice, or for the sake of Yang Dingtian's feelings? And put himself in danger of being hunted down by the evil Dao? Queen Devil Queen would never believe that Vulture would have such feelings. Of course, for the most part, Queen Devil Queen wasn't wrong about Shura Vulture. But she still didn't see the other part of Vulture clearly. That was the uneasiness in Vulture's heart. In the Empire of Darkness, Vulture couldn't find a sense of security at all. And Yang Dingtian gave her an absolute sense of security. Not to mention, there was an intimate relationship between her and Yang Dingtian. And the so-called vanity was even more ridiculous. In the Empire of Darkness, there were no more than a few thousand normal people. The remaining hundreds of millions of Legion of Doom were a bunch of terrifying monsters that couldn't speak or communicate. What was the point of such power? What was power? For ambitious people, it might be land, countless soldiers, or wealth. And for Vulture, what was power? It was to make countless people afraid and jealous. And it had to be a real living person. Then, in the human countries, what was more enviable and terrifying than the identity of Yang Dingtian's wife? Of course, Vulture was thinking too much. Although being Yang Dingtian's wife was very illustrious, if she bullied others, the first one to run out to punish would be Yang Dingtian. In the past, Qin Jiaojiao used her power to bully others and ordered them around. But after entering Cloud Sky City, she immediately became obedient. So, the best ending for Vulture now was: she would still bring Shura Vulture's body and cultivation back to Yang Dingtian's side, become his wife, and let the entire human countries look up to her. It would be best if she returned to the southern barbarian continent and told everyone that Vulture was back. All of you who looked down on me before, just watch. Now, I can easily decide your fate. Your boss's boss's boss is just a small soldier of my husband. Previously, I was just a little princess of the Vulture Palace. Now, I am the mistress of the entire human countries. She also wanted to find the spirit rabbit and said arrogantly, "Look, I'm back again, and you're nothing now." This was the scene that the Azura spirit vulture dreamed of. So, Queen Devil Queen thought she understood women, but in fact, she still didn't understand Vulture's vicious and childish heart. What Vulture wanted was the glory of being Yang Dingtian's wife. Even the Legion of Doom couldn't do anything to a large formation formed by thousands of martial arts experts. Although the power of the lightning spewed out by the Dark Dragon was too shocking and could easily kill a martial ancestor realm expert. But every time the Dark Dragon was about to spit out, there would be half-sage realm experts and countless great grandmaster realm experts in front of it to block these terrifying attacks. And the weak martial ancestors and even martial venerables would be in the innermost part of the formation. And the thousands of evil spirits of evil ways had immortal bodies. But in terms of cultivation, they were still inferior to the martial arts army of the human countries. So, under the crazy attacks of the Dark Dragon and the Dark Evil Dragon, thousands of the martial arts army of the human countries fought and retreated, quickly retreating. Then, they saw this magnificent city completely trampled and torn apart. Dongfang Minmi and everyone else's hearts were bleeding and twitching. This city had accompanied them in the battle for 3 days. They defended it for 3 days. Now, it was completely shattered by the demons. Along with it, nearly 200,000 elites of the human countries were also shattered, although this was already much less than they had imagined. However, Dongfang Minmi and the others were still heartbroken to the point of suffocation. On the battlefield, it wasn't that they didn't want to save these ordinary soldiers. It was just that everything happened too quickly. In almost a few seconds, the entire city wall completely collapsed. Dozens of dragons of destruction instantly caused the city wall, which was dozens of miles long and hundreds of meters wide, to completely collapse. Close to 200,000 people were buried in an instant. Then, millions of the Armageddon Legion flooded the entire city. The fall of Beiping City was already so painful, let alone Cloud Sky City. For Dongfang Minmi, although Yinyang School was his home. However, after becoming the sect master, the time he spent in Yinyang School was very short. Most of the time, Cloud Sky City and Zhongjing were the places he stayed. Cloud Sky City was more like his home. For his wife, Cloud Sky City was even more like her home. Although Dongfang Minmi later became the head of Yinyang School again, Mrs. Dongfang didn't have the slightest intention of going back. For her, the place where her grandchildren were was her home. She had almost gathered all her emotions in the small valley home in Cloud Sky City. Even now, Yang Dingtian's entire family was still in the valley of Cloud Sky City. Although, in the strategy of the Council of Light, Cloud Sky City would definitely fall. The bottom line was to protect Zhongjing, using the vast sea and millions of Mermaid Empire's Sea Clan army to block the vast Legion of Doom. But now, Dongfang Minmi felt that if Cloud Sky City fell, his emotions would be completely unable to accept it. Devil Queen, the experts of the Council of Light have retreated. Let's chase after them and kill them all, Dongli said in a trembling voice. Devil Queen said, "Who's going to kill them?" They have a saint-level expert, a dozen half-saints, and countless infinite great masters. Can we kill them all? Dongli said. Then are we just going to let them run away? Devil Queen sneered and said, "Where can they run to? It's just Cloud Sky City." Then Devil Queen said, "Shura Vulture's spiritual power has been exhausted. If the Dark Dragon and Dark Evil Dragon are killed, they can no longer be revived. So just let them be." Prince Li Ming said, "Then should we order the army to regroup?" Infernal Queen Wang Ji said, "No, there's no need. Let the millions of Legion of Doom tear apart the entire land of chaos. Destroy all the castles, all the cities, and all the places here. Let the Council of Light see clearly, let Yang Dingtian see clearly. Wherever the Legion of Doom passes, everything will be destroyed." "Yes," Prince Li Ming said. Dongli said, "Then when will we attack Cloud Sky City?" Devil Queen glanced at the unconscious Shura Vulture and said, "When she wakes up and recovers her spiritual power, we will attack Cloud Sky City." Dongli said ferociously, "This woman did it on purpose. Her heart is completely on Yang Dingtian's side. Back then, His Majesty Demon King shouldn't have let her marry Yang Dingtian." Devil Queen glanced at Dongli and sneered, "Don't worry, Shura Vulture's heart will always be with her. She enjoyed the feeling of being a star on the battlefield too much. She was addicted, so she performed so crazily that her spiritual power was exhausted." Although Dongli was unwilling, if Vulture didn't wake up and recover her spiritual power, they wouldn't be able to win this war. There was indeed no way to win this battle. The Radiant Council's destruction bombs were too astonishing. They could even kill the Dark Colossal Dragon. However, they were no longer worried about the destructive missiles. Obviously, the Council of Light had used up all of them. Moreover, this batch of destruction-grade missiles would definitely take a few months, or even a few years to produce. In just a few days, the Council of Light wouldn't be able to produce any more. At this moment, a servant suddenly stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, Naga Empire's High Exon is here to pay a visit." The Demon Queen's dead princess revealed a cold smile. This woman won't cry until she sees the coffin. After Queen Hyexan came in, Devil Queen said indifferently, "Your Majesty, what other requests do you have? Our alliance has already been written clearly." Queen Hyexan stepped forward and knelt down. "Your Majesty Devil Queen, I agree to become one of His Majesty Demon King's concubines. I agree to become a vassal of the Empire of Darkness. From now on, there will be no Naga Empire in the world. The Naga race is only a part of the Empire of Darkness, a small part." Devil Queen was stunned. She thought that Queen Hyexan had come to ask for help because of a military setback, a few dark dragons or a few destructive earth dragons. Who would have thought that the Queen of the Sea Heart would directly and thoroughly compromise? Just what had happened? What's wrong? What happened on your side? Devil Queen asked. Queen Hyexan's eyes were red. She was in great pain and said, My Naga Empire's army has been completely annihilated." Devil Queen stood up abruptly and said in disbelief, "What? Completely annihilated? You have an army of tens of millions. How long has it been? It hasn't even been 3 days. Even if you stand still and line up for the enemy to kill, 3 days won't be enough." Queen Hyexan said in a trembling voice, "In fact, in just one night, my army of tens of millions was completely annihilated." Devil Queen and all the people of the Empire of Darkness were completely stunned. The Naga Empire's army of tens of millions was not inferior to the Legion of Doom 200 years ago. Unexpectedly, it was completely annihilated in one night. Moreover, the opponent was only the Northwest Qin City war zone. At present, the Council of Light's main force was in Zhongjing, and the second main force was in Cloud Sky City and Beiping. The Northwest Qin City war zone was only the third main force. Queen Hyexan said, "Qin Wanshou used a plan to destroy all my air forces and kill millions of my eagle men. Then he sent hundreds of thousands of air forces, 50,000 cavalry in one wave, to bombard my Naga Empire's army in the dark night. In one night, there were nearly 30 waves of bombardment. In each wave, he dropped hundreds of millions of kilograms of bombs and napalm bombs." Devil Queen said in shock, That night, the Northwest Qin City dropped tens of billions of kilograms of bombs on you?" The Queen of the Sea Hearts nodded. Suddenly, the entire upper echelon of the Empire of Darkness was completely speechless. Although they knew that the human kingdom unified by Yang Dingtian was very powerful, they didn't expect it to be so powerful that it was suffocating. It could be said that if the Demon King Wen hadn't discovered the ruins of the ancient Empire of Darkness, then in this war of extermination, the Temple of Annihilation wouldn't even have the qualifications to participate. In the same war of extermination as before, the tens of millions of Legion of Doom wouldn't even have the chance to go out to sea. In one night, they would be completely annihilated. Devil Queen even had this thought in her heart. The Demon King Wen had only discovered the ruins of the ancient Empire of Darkness. What he did was only discover. Yang Dingtian, on the other hand, had truly created an incomparably powerful human kingdom. It was creation. Therefore, although Yang Dingtian couldn't compare to the Demon King Wen in terms of martial arts, strategy, politics, and so on. However, Yang Dingtian was stronger than Wen. After a while, the Demon King's undead concubine said, "If the war of extermination happened 2 years later, the winner wouldn't be us. Even if we had the ancient Empire of Darkness and hundreds of millions of Legion of Doom, we would still be defeated." Although Dongli didn't want to believe that Yang Dingtian was powerful, he had to admit this fact. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "Therefore, before they become truly powerful, we have to completely destroy them. Completely kill them and destroy their civilization." Then, Dongli said, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, if we attack Cloud Sky City this time, I request to enter Cloud Sky City's valley." Devil Queen said, "You want to touch Yang Dingtian's family?" Dongli said, "I will never forget the humiliation he brought to me." Devil Queen frowned slightly. The release Dongli's was still so crazy and violent. However, this time, the Demon King didn't give a prohibition order to Yang Dingtian's family. If they attacked Cloud Sky City, they would definitely capture Yang Dingtian's family and use them as bargaining chips to force Yang Dingtian to compromise. The Martial Arts Legion didn't retreat directly to Cloud Sky City because they quickly caught up with the retreating Council of Light Army. Therefore, thousands of martial arts experts had to cover their retreat. Fortunately, because Vulture fainted, the Legion of Doom didn't catch up. At this time, the Great Cloud Sky City War Zone sent out an astronomical number of air and land troops to pick up the 3 million soldiers from the Beijing War Zone and return to Cloud Sky City. Even so, it took them a few days to return to the Cloud Sky City War Zone. Cloud Sky City's Valley. Dongfang Minmi said, "Yan, you have to retreat." Yan Shimin said, "Yes, eunuch. Where are we retreating to?" Dongfang Minmi said, "The southwest continent. If necessary, we can even retreat directly to the Netherworld Sea. It's safe there." Chapter 987. Yan Shimin thought for a while and said, "All right, let's go to the Netherworld Sea directly." If it was another woman, she might have said that she wanted to stay behind to boost the morale and express her will to fight together with all the soldiers. However, Yan didn't do that. Instead, she directly agreed and even suggested going to the Netherworld Sea. Because she didn't have any political ambitions, she didn't need to make her presence known. Most importantly, she felt that this was the safest way for her family. In the past, Evil Ways had a tacit understanding not to invade Yang Dingtian's family. However, it seemed that this tacit understanding had disappeared. In Yan Shimin's heart, nothing was more important than the safety of her family. Every child in the family was her precious treasure. Every sister in the family was her family. The Netherworld Sea was probably one of the few places that Evil Ways couldn't invade. It was at the bottom of the sea where the ancient giant beast, Xiao Xiao, had been subdued. No matter if it was the Dark Dragon or the Dark Owl Dragon, they couldn't pass through it. Moreover, there was a powerful energy field there. It could be considered the safest place. After making the decision, Yan Shimin and her family immediately took action. At this moment, all the non-military personnel in Cloud Heaven City had already evacuated. The only ones left were Yang Dingtian's family in the valley. This included Madame Shimin, Master's wife, Yang Dingtian's wife and children. After packing up a little, they rode on a few demon eagles and headed directly to the Netherworld Sea. Before leaving, Yan Shimin saw Ling Wu meditating in the castle. Ever since she came to Cloud Heaven City, Ling Wu didn't step out of the castle. Every day, she would cultivate in the castle. "Sister Ling, we're going to the Netherworld Sea. Come with us," Shimin Yan Shimin said. Ling Wu looked at Yan Shimin for a while. She had hated this woman before because Yang Dingtian didn't go to Fire Island to pick her up but stayed by Yan Shimin's side. However, at this moment, she felt that her hatred was really laughable. The girl in front of her was almost the cutest and kindest girl in the world. Ling Wu smiled and said, "You're calling me like this and inviting me to the Netherworld Sea. Are you taking me in on behalf of your Yang Dingtian?" Immediately, Yan's face turned red from Ling Wu's mischievous joke. After that, she stuttered, "I'm naturally willing. But this kind of thing can only be decided by my husband." Yan was the only one who didn't know how to speak. If it was Wu Maji, it was guaranteed that Ling Wu would be so embarrassed that she would be unable to show her face. She would say, "If you want to enter our house, how is the three-dimensional size? Is it fresh? I want to inspect the goods." Even though Ling Wu's age was about the same as Yan's, she had experienced too many things. When she saw Yan's adorable and flushed face and ears, she felt both envious and tender affection in her heart. She said, "All right, you can continue to fool around. I've been here for so long. Now that we're in danger, it's time for me to contribute." Yan Shimin said, "But the evil spirit energy in your body was given to you by them. Perhaps they have a way to deal with you." Ling Wu shook her head and said, "My elder brother, Wu Yuming, can fight against first-grade evil spirits. Second-grade evil spirits basically have no way to suppress a person's will. If I can't even defeat a second-grade evil spirit, then it would be a waste of elder brother's painstaking efforts for me." Yan Shimin nodded and said, All right then. We'll take our leave first. See you in the future. See you in the future. Ling Wu smiled. After that, she finally couldn't help but say, Yang Dingnan has protected you so well. I'm really jealous to death. Yan Yan immediately said embarrassedly, Sister Ling, don't tease me. Ling Wu smiled gently. Yang Dingtian had protected Yan Yan very well. As for Wu Yuming, he had also protected her very well. Although, this kind of protection was only truly activated after Wu Yuming and Yang Dingtian lost the duel. But it had to be said that once a person was wholeheartedly protected and loved, it was really difficult for her to fall into darkness and evil again. Next, in the entire Great Cloud Sky City, unprecedented war preparations were carried out again. All the munitions factories owned by the Council of Light. Everyone inside didn't sleep or rest at all. They were racing against time. They were madly manufacturing brand new bombs and missiles. The 6th generation X crystal bomb formula. Especially the annihilation-grade bombs and annihilation-grade missiles. All the secret factories were operating madly. How many days would it take for the Legion of Doom to arrive at Great Cloud Sky City? How much time would it take for the Battle of Cloud Sky City to break out? How much time was left for Cloud Sky City? It was completely unknown. Perhaps tomorrow, or perhaps the day after tomorrow. The omnipresent Legion of Doom would appear in the sky above Cloud Sky City. The entire Great Cloud Sky City was once again crazily reinforced. The city walls, which were originally tall and thick enough, were once again enlarged by several times. Regardless of whether it was the height or the thickness, they had all increased by several times. Moreover, behind Cloud Sky City were huge mountain ranges. The Council of Light had transformed these mountain ranges into a more solid defense line. At this time, the entire Great Cloud Sky City war zone had more than 50,000 cannons. As for the crystal crossbows, it was an even more astronomical number. However, the army in Cloud Sky City had been reduced by many times. The original Northern War Zone, the 2 million soldiers in it, and all the important materials had all been retreated to Great Cloud Sky City. Cloud Sky City originally had close to 2 million elites, which were used to support the other war zones. In addition, there were close to 3 million soldiers from the Land of Chaos War Zone and 2 million soldiers from the Northern War Zone. At this time, the entire Great Cloud Sky City War Zone and all the castles in Cloud Sky City had more than 7 million soldiers. However, under the orders of the Council of Light, more than 5 million soldiers were all retreated. They retreated in 2 directions. One was Iron Furnace City, and the other was Shijing. Although the Battle of Cloud Sky City had not yet begun, the Council of Light was already prepared to fall. They were preparing for the Battle of Iron Furnace City and Shijing. As for the rest of the people in the Northwest continent, even those south of the Sunset Mountains, they had to evacuate. They had to evacuate to the Central Continent and the Southwest Continent. Suddenly, the entire human nation was in a state of panic. In particular, the fall of the Beiping Theater of Operations was like a thunderbolt to countless people. In just 3 days, the entire Land of Chaos War Zone had completely fallen. It was still okay in the West Continent, but in the entire Central Continent. Countless people were doubting the Radiant Congress, and some were even attacking them. They blamed the Council of Light Corps for their incompetence, the Council of Light, and Yang Dingtian for bringing the entire world into the abyss of war. Yang Dingtian had become the main culprit in countless people's mouths. In the entire Central Continent, countless underground organizations had been established. These organizations only had one theme. They wanted to fight against the Council of Light's so-called guarantee and welcome the rule of the Temple of Annihilation. Many people jumped out and said that they were close to the evil ways. Therefore, as long as they knew someone from the evil ways, they would immediately become a hot steamed bun. Even if they only knew a small role in the evil ways, they could still do whatever they wanted on the ground. They could even take advantage of the people. In the entire Central Continent, countless families had begun to secretly make flags of the Temple of Annihilation, waiting for the arrival of the Temple of Annihilation in the Central Continent. In the face of such wishful thinking, the Council of Light had long been too lazy to investigate. As long as you didn't jump out, As long as you didn't hold public gatherings, they wouldn't care what you did in private. However, as long as someone dared to jump out, they would immediately mobilize their troops and use the harshest methods to suppress them. The crime was very simple. It was war crimes, crimes against the human nation. In the entire central continent, the heads that had been chopped off had already circled several miles, or even dozens of miles. However, those who jumped out to lead the way for the evil ways and attacked the Council of Light were still coming one after another, and they couldn't be killed off. If one said that this group of people were afraid of death, they were extremely bold. They weren't afraid of the Council of Light's swords at all and repeatedly jumped out to rebel. If one said that they were bold, they were as timid as a mouse. The Legion of Doom was still tens of thousands of miles away, but they were already scared out of their wits. If they had this courage, they might as well directly fight against the evil ways. And the most ridiculous thing was that most of the rebellions here weren't organized by the evil ways. The Queen Devil Queen was confident in her powerful strength and didn't care about it at all. Therefore, these leaders who jumped out to rebel and were executed were all the kind who brought their own food. There were really all kinds of strange things in the boundless world. Time must have passed day by day. Finally, the 5 million troops in Cloud Sky City had all evacuated to the south of the Sunset Mountains. The people of Iron Furnace City and Shijing had all evacuated to the sea, preparing to head to the Central Continent and the Southwest Continent. And the entire Central Continent's riots and rebellions were rising and falling one after another. Later, the relevant documents were no longer sent to the Council of Light's commander-in-chief. They were handed over to the commanders of the various defense zones to solve their own problems. This was undoubtedly an order for a massacre. The commanders of the various defense zones in Central Continent were all Yang Dingtian's most hardcore supporters. What they hated the most was the people's vicious attacks on the Council of Light and Yang Dingtian. Fuck, I risked my life for you. In order to protect you, the Council of Light had worked hard for a few years. In the end, not only did you not appreciate it, you even rebelled every day. And the reason for the rebellion wasn't because you didn't have enough to eat, but because you wanted to help the Legion of Doom rule Central Continent and eliminate the Council of Light. This was too fucking ridiculous. These officers were all hot-tempered and straightforward. Therefore, this order from the Council of Light's commander-in-chief was undoubtedly an order for a massacre. In order to completely eliminate order and ensure the progress of the war, the commanders of these defense zones would definitely kill until heads rolled. Even the higher-ups of the Council of Light had already proposed that the final goal should not be to protect Central Continent and Zhongjing, but to protect the Southwest Continent. This was the only area where the Council of Light was most loyal. The people here were full of absolute love and support for the Council of Light. Even the loyalty of the Southern Barbarian Continent was much higher than that of Central Continent. Moreover, in terms of contribution to this war, the Southwest Continent was much smaller, and there were much fewer people. However, its contribution to the entire war was greater than that of Central Continent. Moreover, now the entire Southwest Continent, all the people were in a frenzy of production and construction. Their brains were more direct. Now they were desperately producing, not only to protect Cloud Sky City, but also to protect the Southwest Continent and their home. As for the people of Central Continent, especially the people of Zhongjing, they were too smart. They felt that it didn't matter if the ruler changed. Whether it was the Council of Light or the evil ways, they were all jackals of the same tribe. Perhaps the result would be better if the ruler changed. Many people of Zhongjing were disdainful of the enthusiasm of the Southern Barbarian Continent and the Southwest Continent. They felt that this group of people was too ignorant and brainwashed. Therefore, at present, all the higher-ups of the Council of Light, including the leaders of the forces of Zhongjing, were full of disgust towards Zhongjing. But no matter what, the Council of Light's preparation for the war never stopped. Almost all the resources were tilted towards the production of the annihilation missiles and the annihilation bombs. Countless secret factories, regardless of cost or casualties, were producing the new formula of the 6th-generation Crystal X combination regardless of the cost. The entire Council of Light was in a race against time. 3 days, 5 days, 8 days, 10 days had passed. 15 days had passed. This time was all bought by the Shura vulture for the Council of Light. However, she would eventually wake up, and it was completely impossible to pretend. Half a month after the fall of the Land of Chaos, the Shura vulture woke up. This meant that the Legion of Doom was going to set off again to Great Cloud Sky City. The Queen Devil Queen sat on the Shura vulture's couch and said, "Vulture, how do you feel?" The Shura vulture said, "It's okay, but I feel that my mental strength hasn't recovered yet." The Queen Devil Queen smiled and said, "Don't worry, recover slowly. But we used some method to let Dongli regain the ability of a man." As soon as these words came out, the Shura vulture's expression changed. The Infernal Queen's dead concubine was a blatant threat. If the Shura vulture didn't cooperate and continued to play dead to delay time. If that was the case, then perhaps she would hand her fresh body over to Dong Li Ling to abuse. At this time, Dong Li, who was a little twisted in his heart, would definitely ask for it. The Shura vulture smiled sweetly at the Queen Devil Queen and said, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, 2 days, at most 2 days, I will be able to fully recover my mental strength." The Queen Devil Queen smiled and said, "That's good, it's been hard on you." Then, the Devil Queen walked out slowly. The Shura vulture's heart was filled with infinite resentment. "All of you better remember this. One day I will make all of you beg for death." The Azura spirit vulture cursed in its heart. In her heart, she was even more eager for Yang Dingtian's return. The half a month that the vulture bought was incomparably long and precious for Yang Dingtian, who was deep in meditation. In this long period of time, Yang Dingtian and the Demon Fox High Priest had even forgotten the time. Day after day, year after year. Constantly researching, constantly writing. Finally, this terrible work was finally coming to an end. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.